to the Town of Basalt work session. We are cranking up at about 5:03 here. Our work session items are going to be introduced by Ron Miller, our interim town manager, and I will just turn it over to Ron right now.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Basalt's franchise agreement with Comcast expired some 3 years ago. Since then, we've been on a month basis for cable services. We've been invited to join a multi-jurisdictional consortium to negotiate a new franchise agreement. The other jurisdictions are Pitkin County, Snowmass Village, and the city of Aspen. I think that joining a foreign government contingent like that would strengthen our hand in receiving the highest quality cable services for our subscribers and protect the town's infrastructure and also ensure that our codes are complied with. Our participation would be split with the other communities, and our maximum contribution would be $5,000 to jointly hire an attorney who has expertise in utility franchise negotiations. We're fortunate to have Phyllis Matisse here from Pitkin County, Assistant County Administrator or Manager? Manager, who has further details, so I'll turn it over to Phyllis.
Hi, Phyllis. Hi there. Thanks for driving over, or walking over. Okay.
On my way home, kind of. The city of Aspen, the county, and Snowmass Village negotiated together 7 years ago. Our agreement expires at the end of this year. And then we discovered that Basalt's had already expired and thought, well, we'd invite you all to join with us if you liked. Ken Fellman, who we're contracting with, is one of the leading, if not the leading attorney in the state who does a lot of government franchise agreements. So he brings with him not only expertise, but the experience of what he's been able to negotiate with Comcast for the various entities. Things that you get to negotiate, we're already at a 5% franchise fee, which is the top level, and that's what we all have right now. But there's PEG fees, public education and government fees that allow you to put money toward equipment. Right now, Basalt's current agreement has 25 cents per subscriber. Pitkin County and Aspen have 50 cents per subscriber, and Snowmass doesn't have anything. So one of the things that we get to negotiate together would be, we all want the same thing and we all want the same benefits. It was interesting, we had a first introductory call with Ken, and the 5% we get is on the gross revenues of Comcast. He identified, but gross revenues aren't identified. What are they? Are they your monthly subscriber fees, or does it include the pay-for-view and all the other add-on things that Comcast gets to have? So that's another negotiating piece that you have when we put this together. He did give us a not-to-exceed price of approximately $20,000. So in the past, the three entities have just divided it equally. Pitkin County takes the lead, so we'll pay all the invoices as we go through it. When we get to the final negotiation, we'll send you an invoice for a quarter of whatever it is, which would probably be next fiscal year. We don't anticipate anything is going to get done by the end of this year. It's typically, depending on what we want to negotiate, it may take 2, 3, or 4 negotiating sessions for him to have with Comcast. So he would represent all 4 of us equally. We do have an opportunity to make individual requests if we wanted to. They all don't have to be the same. So that's something to consider as you're going through. There's the equipment purchases. If you wanted PEG fees, they will even do equipment up front, and they'll give you, it's really a grant that you essentially pay back with your monthly fees. And then sometimes you have to watch that they don't collect past what they loaned you. There's also the public and education stations that we have. We have 3 that are out of Aspen. We were just trying to figure out what is Basalt 17 and figuring out is that a benefit? Is that an asset that maybe we can help with programming? We all do use grassroots, so that's another piece that we can work together. Grassroots is separate, but we can maybe benefit on some of the equipment that Grassroots needs to benefit all of us, that we can get some funds for from Comcast. So that's kind of how it's been working. These fees are really for Comcast to maintain, upgrade, or expand within the franchise areas. Yours is your limits, ours is rural, Pitkin County, unincorporated. So each entity has its own little district. And I've learned a lot since I've started this project, that's for sure.
Well, it sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm sure there are going to be questions from council maybe? Yes, Sodden or Bernie.
How do we identify the equipment that we might want to get these PEG fees for?
Typically, it's going to be the equipment to broadcast your meetings. If you needed new cameras, new microphones, a new, whatever that equipment that Amy has back there to make it all work.
So that would be up to our provider to advise us on?
It can work either way. Pitkin County currently turns our PEG fees over to Grassroots, and we have an agreement that they maintain all of our equipment, and so they'd replace it. It can work any variety of ways. If something was happening, you had a camera break, you could use those fees. The fees can just be deposited, and you can save because you know you need a large, some master box at some point.
We're not currently receiving them in Basalt?
I do believe you are getting some. You have a fee that's 25 cents per subscriber per month.
Others are getting twice that much?
Correct.
Okay.
Pitkin County and Aspen are, and Snowmass is working, they're happy to be negotiating now to be able to get some PEG fees. We do have Grassroots is needing some pieces of equipment so they can actually televise in HD. Currently, I believe you record in HD, but Grassroots cannot broadcast in HD. So that's going to be another item that we hope to negotiate with Comcast, the ability to get an HD station.
Lord knows they want to see us better than they can see us now.
Yeah.
Hudden?
Can you explain in the simplest terms for a sixth grader what a franchise agreement renegotiation is and what's at stake?
Sure. Let's see. Comcast, and it's an old law that happened somewhere along the line, because this is only for cable TV. It doesn't include broadband, it doesn't include any of the other services that Comcast offers. So you can realize how old this law was. And it's only cable TV, because CenturyLink doesn't, or CenturyTel or whatever they are, doesn't have that issue. It's only cable. And it allows them to be able to put infrastructure within the franchise area. So sometimes within your negotiations, you want to say wherever you put infrastructure, you have to put re-veg an area. We have certain regulations within our right-of-way. If your right-of-way regulations don't provide what the protection that you want, you can add it into your franchise agreement. So it's agreement for Comcast to be able to put their infrastructure within the area. It doesn't have anything to do with providing service or level of service or stations, but you can get information about any changes they have within your area. I don't know if a sixth grader would have got it, but I tried.
I think
A smart,
an advanced
yeah,
sixth grader.
a
So one of the concerns we got from the public was, hey, my Comcast service is terrible. I can't even cancel it. I can't get someone to answer me. That, we can't play in that. We can't say, hey, part of this negotiation should be if you're gonna be in our district, you have to answer phone calls or you have to be able to provide service.
We certainly can look at customer service. That's one of Comcast's items that they say they've improved a lot in. That doesn't mean that people are being taken care of like they should be, but I don't know relative to what it was years ago. But they are identifying that as something they want to do. You can look at it here, we can make a point, but I don't think it's a negotiation point.
Okay, but I think if you mention it, it'll be helpful, even
Sure.
if you have no leverage.
Sure.
Yeah.
That customer service is important in our service area, and we want to ensure and maybe we can get information that we can share. At the very least, that's something to discuss within our attorney, and we'll find out how it can be advanced.
Counselor Riffle?
Is there a reason that the town of Basalt has let this agreement lapse since 2000, or since
2013.
2013, excuse me, not 2003, 2013.
That I wouldn't know why, but
there-
it
I don't
runs
know.
from month to month after it expires, and it stands exactly as it was. There's nothing that changes from the agreement, so the agreement essentially just lives on.
Okay.
I mean, maybe Susan knows. Do we get a notice of some kind when it expires?
say it's probably because, we don't get a notice and we change administrators, and town managers, and so you're, I was thinking about this because it kinda happened last year with, oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of how can you have a tickler system, because we have other agreements too that need to be periodically updated. And one of the issues is by the time it comes around, 7 years later, you have a different town manager, and so it's not on the same manager's kind of radar screen. But maybe we can talk to Pam. It really should be something that's kind of, I think, in the clerk's office is some kind of tickler system of when it should be updated.
Ron, did you catch all that she said? I think that's a really good point, that because we don't have a system that tracks when things expire or go away, we need that.
I did
Not
hear,
just
and
for
that's
this,
something
okay,
we will do.
okay, great. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Okay?
Yeah, you bet. Okay,
And this item is for
Yeah.
action later in the.
correct, I know, we didn't take any action. The next item is review proposals, executive recruiter firms. For town manager.
Okay, excuse me. We invited 7 professional search firms to submit proposals to conduct a search for the next permanent town manager. We received 3 responses, and although it's in your packet, I did kind of a matrix, if you would pass that along. There are not copies in there?
But there's also this, did
Oh,
you want
that's
to give this
mine.
to us? I didn't think so.
If you pass that along.
And there was one other thing in here which you might have wanted to keep
I
your hands on.
probably gave you my own notes.
Yeah.
Um,
One more,
Oh, there's a whole bunch of these for some
all
reason.
right, we need one more, couple more
Oh,
maybe.
okay, here you go.
So I'll give you a second to glance at that. It's just a brief summary. All 3 respondents are compliant with the RFP requirements, which I included in your packet. Each of the fees are, I consider reasonable for the scope of work that they'd be providing, and are about what we anticipated in the budget. All the firms, all 3 are highly reputable, highly experienced in, I would recommend that the council interview each of these firms to select one to conduct the manager search, and be glad to answer any questions.
Anybody? Questions?
Has anybody in,
Yeah, go ahead, and then Gary.
has anybody in the valley used any of these firms?
I'm not certain of that. I have, in past roles, utilized the first 2 and can vouch for their competence and abilities. Peckham and McKinney is the other, and they have a great reputation and have done a lot of work in Colorado. And I think it'd be worthwhile to interview them as well.
Yeah, Gary?
The biggest question I had was, what's the guarantee?
That means, what you're asking is on the right-hand
Yeah.
column. That means that for most reasons, if for any reason the person that the council hires leaves within, in these cases, 2 years, again, for most reasons, not every reason, they will reconduct the search at no additional fee. except for expenses, but no base fee. So the first two on the list, CPS and Slavin, would guarantee their work for 2 years, and you could see their fees. And Peckham and McKinney would guarantee placement with a 1-year guarantee.
Okay. Anybody else? I guess my question to this council would be, in my mind, I assume that when we hire the town manager, there'll be a lot of all-on interviews and community interviews. Do we want to ask a subcommittee to do these interviews for the headhunter? Because I know there are several people sitting at this table who are busy and employed. And I'm just saying, it's a headhunter. We could, the subcommittee could come back to the crew and make a recommendation if the council wanted to do it that way.
I'm all right with that.
It just seems crazy to have us all here to hire somebody to hire somebody.
Yep.
Okay. So do we need to wait during the meeting to like ask who could, for a subcommittee?
I would suggest that you do.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, then the last one is Whitewater Park Improvements, Pitkin County, and Ron wants to introduce that one as well.
John is
We're pleased to have John Peacock here, the county manager from Pitkin County, and
The very important John Peacock
the
from Pitkin
important-
County
yes,
is in the room.
I thought that was assumed, everybody knew that.
Make sure there's not another
Yeah.
John Peacock here.
Hi,
John
John.
and I have been in negotiations, and since he's present, I appreciate your time and availability, so I'll let you discuss where we are in negotiations and
Sure.
get council feedback.
Well, thank you for making time for us on your agenda today. I know it's a busy one. I wanted to be here today because I think there obviously was some misunderstanding with the original request, and happily have been able to spend some time with Ron, and I think your staff has been able to spend some additional time with county staff, understanding the project and such. And so we've come to maybe a different conclusion, I think, better understanding council's concerns and certainly the circumstances of your budget right now and the request that we're making and timing of that request. But before I go into kind of where we've ended up, I just want to be clear why the county made the request that it did, because I think there's some misunderstanding there, and I don't want that to cloud any future conversations or discussion. As we've been in our project, we did notice that there was some, basically some structural issues basically with the road base, and some of you may recall that road had washed out almost completely in the mid-90s, a flood in 1995. It had been repaired, and I think what we were looking at is that repair base, which was done fairly quickly. We felt could probably use shoring up in the event of another flood. At the same time, we saw the opportunity to enhance the river project that we're currently doing. It would be a change in scope in addition to scope. And the reason that we approached Basalt for the 50-50 partnership is the benefit on both sides. One, to the stability of the road in the event of a future flood, as well as the enhancements that could be made in terms of the access path and such to the park. We understand that the request came as a surprise. It came on short notice, and it also came in the context of difficult budget discussions that you all were having as a council. And that's something we've been better, I think, able to understand, and talking with your staff about the project, and talking also about how the expectations of what the county would be doing with the project and our previous conversations. At any rate, we're coming here to modify our request today. So with that explanation of why we were here originally and what we're doing. I think understanding the challenging budget circumstances and the advantage to the Whitewater Park and public safety, what we would like to propose is that while the county's there, we will go ahead and make the improvements that we discussed on our budget. And so we will take the request for funding off the table, unless you want to revisit that, I'll be happy to talk about that. Take that off the table.
Don't do that,
What we do
John.
still need, that we can work with your staff on, is a consent and release to perform the work, because the work is not on our property, it's within the town's right-of-way, and in terms of making the improvements to the road base, it's actually not part of our project per se. It would be a project that we'd be doing on behalf of the town of Basalt. And so that's something that I think between Ron and myself and our attorneys, that we could figure out the mechanism for that consent and release. It's a fairly typical transaction when in these types of partnerships. I just wanted to be here tonight to be sure we understood the context and got any misunderstandings off the table, and again, not clouding any future discussions.
John, if I could just say, this is about a lot more than money. It's about the relationship that we have had with Pitkin County for the 20 years that I have been on this council, on and off. And as for myself, I just have to really thank you for, I mean, you basically said all the things that were in my head about our concerns, and it's just greatly appreciated, and I'm sure everyone here either will say that or will nod that. And thank you again for just coming in here, talking to Ron, and coming into this meeting.
But it's a credit to your staff that we were able to understand those concerns and come to, I think, a resolution that's hopefully good for the community and hopefully beneficial for our partnership. We're going to have other opportunities to work together and asks on the table, and this wasn't one to get those opportunities clouded on.
Is there a motion for a hug for Pitkin County? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Uh,
Yeah.
I just also want to thank John for being so great to work with and negotiate. And also, I met with John Ely, the county attorney. He also was very reasonable and responsive. But I think a lot of credit goes to John for helping facilitate this positive win-win situation and for further strengthening the partnership between Pitkin County and the town of Basalt. And also, I want to thank the county commissioners for approving this arrangement.
Certainly send that message strongly.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Really thank the Board of County Commissioners for reconsidering and relooking at this to make this work for everyone. And I think, you know, there's a lot more to do out there, and there's a lot more that we all can do together. And so I think the partnership could be, you know, it's just enhanced by these type of agreements and working together.
Yes, Bernie.
Yeah, we appreciate you working with us. I do have concern, and I can see very clearly, I want to compliment whoever made these graphics. Your typical sixth grader could see and understand the difference.
We like that.
Yes, but my question is, and I can see the safety and the security of the revetment and of the, you know, basically the dirt above it will be greatly enhanced, and the safety of the boaters standing on a wider, more stable platform is a very big improvement. But I just wonder, it says stair option will require reducing Two Rivers Road lane width. I assume they mean the stair option we are talking about, the change order.
That is my understanding.
And that is my concern. What are the mobility and safety impacts on Two Rivers Road with this stair option?
Can I ask Susan to respond, please?
So the reason that we had this on the November 22nd agenda is
there was a real-time sensitivity about the work in the river. We're planning on bringing back to the town council this additional discussion on the stair and what happens with Two Rivers Road. And right now, we had that scheduled for January 10th with the council. We have another meeting scheduled with Picken County and River Restoration to talk about this, what we're calling kind of option 1.5, which is, and you see it in your packet, that's what you're reading from. And that is where the stair itself, instead of regrading the slope, the stair itself becomes the viewing platform. It becomes wider, and the landing area requires some adjustments to Two Rivers Road. So the 1.5 is a little less radical than the option 2, and so that's the one that we're going to be presenting on the 10th. So what you're doing today isn't necessarily approving that. It's kind of approving what you're seeing in the graphic itself.
Okay, but we don't, at this point, know what the impact it will be on Two Rivers Road.
Well, it was, as you know, we've always wanted to narrow Two Rivers Road. It's a rural highway cross-section. So, you know, generally, we're talking about narrowing it to 11-foot lanes. And that's actually what you're gonna be seeing tonight when you're looking at Basalt Avenue at that intersection. So it's, you know, traffic calming, narrowing it down, allowing a little bigger staging area so that the emergency vehicles can park without closing a lane of road if they need to. It's improvements like that.
Yeah, Ron.
I talked to Boyd, and he is very comfortable with this arrangement. He thinks the lanes are wide enough that it would not have a negative impact on any improvements that would be made to the road and still allow this project to proceed.
Okay.
And I would just maybe add that the county could have talked more broadly about our 1.5 than you have. I'm kind of sensing that from what Ron's saying and what John's kind of shaking his head. But we'll be bringing that piece. Our intention was to bring that piece back for additional discussion with you.
So,
Could I add just one thing? We have been using the same engineer that the town is contracted with also to be sure that our improvements are coordinated to the greatest degree possible. So we expect that we're going to be well coordinated when those options come in front of you in November. We called our consultants off tonight because of the change in request, and we thought it is better to, instead of doing a full-blown presentation on the project, just have the conversation following up on your last meeting.
And that's Loris, that you know.
got it. Yeah,
I just want to reiterate, wow, thank you, John and commissioners, we really appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
There is also free food back there for you if you want.
May take advantage, you know, it's a county night, so I'm sticking around.
It's the most expensive free food you ever didn't pay for.
I've been to some other meetings. I don't know.
Okay, thanks, John. That is all we have on the work session agenda. We are going to break until 6 o'clock. We have plenty of time to get back here by 6, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, guys.
we on? We're ready? Something?
The old sugar stuff?
Okay. We're calling this meeting to order at 6:02. Could we get a roll call, please? Pamela?
Here.
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 Present.
Great, thank you. I'll read a couple of announcements. Our students of the month were told that they were to be here at 6:15, so we're gonna dance around that for a little while. Let's see, we would like to always thank Grassroots TV, and it is Amy tonight, who is our videographer. And also to remind people that the Mayor's Coffee is tomorrow at 8 o'clock at Saxy, so anybody who wants to chat, Chris, maybe you'll come back. I see you are here tonight. That would be nice. But we'll be at, or at least I will be at Saxy's tomorrow at 8. Let's see. So why don't we skip the Students of the Month for a moment and go to the consent agenda? Are there any questions or any pieces of this that people want to pull off, or is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Bernie, and, yes, we're just gonna get a second here from Mark. All in favor?
Wait,
Aye.
Oh.
no,
Oh,
that's why I had discussion on
oh,
it.
you have discussion on the consent
Well,
agenda.
the only thing I was a little annoyed with is postponing the ordinance 25 and 30. You know, one of the things I do get a little annoyed with is last time we were chastised for kicking the can down the road, and now somebody else is kicking the can down the road. I was pretty prepared to talk about it today, so I just wanted to make that comment. Sorry, Auden, but I had to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
Yeah. Did you want to say what you're talking about, or?
I said ordinance, yeah, 24 and 25, so 25 and 30, it's for the marijuana business licenses.
Okay. Yeah,
So
Jen,
am I suggesting that I would like to suggest that we don't postpone it to February and we do it next council meeting?
okay, if we're gonna actually take action on this, we need to pull it off the consent agenda.
you have to stay out.
Oh, okay, sure.
Is somebody pulling this off the consent agenda?
If we pull it off the consent agenda, then we need then make a motion.
Then we can talk about it, right?
All right, then let's pull it off the consent agenda.
Okay, do we need anything more than that, Tom, to pull it off the consent agenda?
Just
A
do it.
request? Okay,
Make it
so
a-
we are gonna pull,
It's not an action item, you can,
so it's,
that doesn't turn it into an action item, but you can discuss it.
is it 4D? Was it 4D?
Or
Gary?
C and 4D.
4C and 4D. Okay, so we're pulling 4C and 4D off the consent agenda. So we have a motion now on the floor for a consent agenda with 4A and 4B on it.
Yeah.
So if there's no more discussion, all in favor to approve that portion of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Okay, so why don't we just go ahead and talk about 4C and 4D? People who wanted to talk about it.
I guess the only thing is that it's been pending for 2 months. Why would we let it linger for another 2? If staff's ready and prepared, why don't we have that in January?
Okay? First meeting or second meeting?
I don't have a preference, whatever works.
Okay, we just need a motion to take action.
Well, what works, it seems like the first meeting in January is really packed.
Yeah, I would at least pick the second meeting in January, which is the 24th, am I correct?
Okay, so is that a motion?
Sure, motion to discuss items 4C and 4D at our January 24th meeting.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okey doke. Thank you. Yeah, we still don't see any kids here, okay. The next item is council comments, reports, and disclosures. Comments, reports, disclosures? I actually have one.
I had a meeting last week, I think it was on Friday, with Rob Pugh, who is the major debt holder on the CDC parcel. We talked about, he had some suggestions about how we might move forward. He was suggesting that we form a group of a couple council people, a couple citizens, and maybe a couple other people with a mediator, and that we try to let those folks hash through some ideas and come back to council with their idea. So I would say that maybe we should talk about that more formally in January, is my thinking. Or basically see if we can get anything, come up with anything ourselves in January, and if not, maybe we talk about this. So, just a disclosure, not an action item. Let's see. Nobody else has anything, is that right? No fun conversations out there? Okay, citizen comments for items not on the agenda, and I'm just trying to get into the habit of reading this. That the council is happy to hear your comments, everybody who is here or not here. If further consideration is deemed appropriate based on your comments, the matter will be taken up by staff or scheduled on a future agenda. These are posted on the wall right here, and I think behind us, these requests, and one of them is to limit your time to 3 minutes. The next one is basically for everyone, which is to speak after being recognized by the mayor so that we don't have people talking everywhere. We're asking people to be courteous, civil, and constructive, and that's kind of the gist of it. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda out there? Hearing none. Gee, I hate to go to the big items, but let's at least do council selection of recruiters, and ask Ron to bring that back up. We did talk about that in our in our work session.
I would recommend that the council schedule interviews with the 3 firms who responded to our RFP. Firstly, and Pam has indicated that availability of council members or most council members on the dates of December 20th, 21st, or 22nd. So if those dates are okay, we could try to schedule people to come in. Ideally, all 3 in one day would be possible, but with the holidays, we'll do our best to get them in to one of those 3 dates, if that's okay.
Well, as we discussed in the work session, we are talking about a subcommittee to go through those interviews initially. So how many people do you recommend we have on that subcommittee? Like 3?
Is 3 a
Does
quorum?
3 feel, if 3 is a quorum, we'll just have to notice it.
I would say 3.
Okay. Auden?
I think I'm already signed up to do it, right? Did someone call me about that?
I did, but you are unavailable on the 20th and 21st, only on the 22nd.
Okay,
Could do the mornings of the 20th or 21st.
okay.
So Auden is not completely open. Bernie, are you?
I'm open except for, I would have to, 6 o'clock on the 22nd, I'd have to leave by then, but any one of those 3 days or the others are fine.
Katie?
Out the 22nd and, I'm 5:30 or later on the 21st.
Like, you couldn't be here till 5:30, okay.
Like, I could arrive at 5:30.
Okay. Mark, are you interested in this?
Well, it sounds like it's an all-day deal.
I wouldn't
Not
think so.
necessarily.
I'm thinking,
No. I think if
30
they're available
minutes.
on different, excuse me, if they're available on different days, and it
22nd.
could be an hour.
are
If-
the candidates available in the daytime or in the evening?
You know, Mayor, I'm not sure. We'd have to contact them and see what their availability is.
Why
with
why
the-
don't we do this? Unless you feel like we need to appoint, like, the interview committee now, I guess we do, actually.
It's next week.
I
'Cause
think
it's-
that would help us move forward.
Okay. So, but we don't know if they can do it in the evening. We think it may be,
I'd have to call the firms and see what their availability is, but I would try to get it when the committee members are available.
Jen, were you available?
No, I'm cooking 14-hour days.
Okay. And
Well, I'll,
will you do it?
yeah.
Will you do it? Will you do it?
Will I do it? I told Pam I can't do the 22nd. I can do part of it. My problem is I have part days on both of those, the 20,
I can do 22nd, if that,
yeah, I can't do the 22nd.
If they're available the 22nd, let's just say Auden, Mark, Bernie up for this?
Bernie can't stay past 6.
On the 22nd, I
22nd.
cannot stay past 6. The other days are all clear.
Available on each of those days, let's see when the companies are available.
So I could do the 20th and the 21st, or I could do definitely the 21st in the afternoon,
Okay.
evening.
Okay, and Mark said he would do it, and really, let's just say we're gonna be done with them by 6. I mean, they're only like 30 or 45-minute interviews, so let's, if it's okay, could we get a motion to authorize Bernie and Mark and Gary to interview the candidates to do the manager search?
Unless Auden really,
Well, unless it's on the 22nd, and then I can't do it,
Okay, I have a list of everybody's availability,
so,
so we'll call the companies
Right.
and see, and then we can
Yeah.
then you could circle back.
circle
And you
back.
know who the 3 are, so that's where we would like to try.
So I'll motion for Gary, Mark, Bernie, with Auden as an alternate in case it can only be held on the 22nd to replace Gary.
Sounds good. Is there a second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great.
Thank
Whew,
you.
I knew that was gonna be hard. All right. And the kids are here. Okay, if everybody would like to come in and take a chair, we can,
Good start.
honor the students of the month. Come on in, it's okay. Okay, is everybody in? Hi. Hi, guys. Okay. Is there camera?
She's on her way. At all.
Pam, do we have
Who you
pins?
got? I don't think he's here.
Okay, we're gonna roll. We are pleased to acknowledge the Student Citizens of the Month from Basalt Public Schools. The awards are based on the 6 pillars of character. This is why you all were chosen to be here. And this is what the pillars of character are about. It's about responsibility. And that involves doing what you are supposed to do, right? Persevere, keep on trying, never give up, always do your best, use self-control and be self-disciplined, think before you act, and consider the consequences of your actions, and be accountable for your choices that you make. So I understand that some people are not here. We have little prizes for you. So why don't we see, who has Vanessa Mercado? Okay, Jennifer. Vanessa Mercado, are you here? Do you want to come up to right here?
Stand here.
We gotta get you on TV.
Yeah,
So there's cameras up here. Okay.
Nice sweater.
I know it's.
Vanessa has been chosen as the Student of the Month for the character trait of responsibility. Vanessa is consistently striving to be her best. She is an excellent role model for her peers and never gives up. I have seen Vanessa come across difficult math equations where at first she may have seemed frustrated. Nonetheless, she furrows her brow, takes a deep breath, and perseveres through the challenge. Vanessa keeps her desk and classroom area organized and is always helping others. Her smile is contagious, and she is an absolute joy to have in class. Excellent work, Vanessa.
You do
Okay, is Jeffrey Ramos here, and who's got Jeffrey?
I got Jeffrey.
Okay, Jeffrey, come on up.
Oh,
All right.
this will be over in a minute. Well, Jeffrey has been chosen as Student of the Month for the character trait of responsibility. Jeffrey has a passion for learning that most aspire to. He consistently makes every day count, brings his full self, prepared and ready for every day. I was lucky enough to have Jeffrey last year for 2 months in my literacy class, and I've witnessed him complete every task that has come across him from then to now. He's an athlete as well, quite the soccer player, and he really knows how to work on a team. Working in class, he goes out of his way to help others who fall behind, inspiring those who have writer's block or confusion. Jeffrey is a one of a kind and will change the world one day.
Woo. Way to go.
Stayed in.
Okay, our next recipient is Giovanni Sorto. That you? Giovanni, okay.
Seventh grade teachers are happy to recognize Giovanni Sorto as Student of the Month. Giovanni is a responsible young man. He consistently arrives on time and ready to work and is very responsible for his learning. We can count on Giovanni to do the right thing and to work hard and contribute in a positive way in the classroom. Congratulations to Giovanni for being Student of the Month for responsibility.
Yay! Good job. Nice sweatshirt. Okay, is Karina Bauer here?
Like 60 seconds, she will be.
60 seconds.
We had another student come in,
Let me check on the high school kids.
Danny Moreno, Basalt High School.
Jenny Moreno,
Jenny, okay, are you Jenny?
come on up. Who's got
Jenny,
Jenny
and-
Moreno? All right.
Who's Roxana? Is Roxana on the list?
It's my friend, but she's working right now.
Okay, she's working so she doesn't get the award. She's on this too.
There's one for each of you.
Okay, both Jenny and Roxanne are exemplars of reliability. This year, they called more than 50 parents to personally invite them to our annual community Thanksgiving dinner. They also went door to door meeting families with invitations to our school. And at the event, you spoke in front of 300 people about what you were thankful for. Wow. We couldn't have pulled off our Thanksgiving dinner without these responsible girls. Congratulations.
Wonderful job.
Congratulations.
Okay, is Edwin Sanchez here? No. And Roxana's not here. She's at work. Okay. Karina Bauer, one more, going.
Should be here just about any minute.
Any minute. So what else you want to talk about while we
You
wait?
can tell them what they get.
Oh, I can, well, she won't get to hear this, but what you all get is a pool pass this summer for the Basalt pool. And you got that wonderful pin, right? Let's have a big cheer for that. Do you swim at this pool in Basalt? Yeah? Good. So what else you got?
Well, I'm just gonna give them candy. Beautiful.
One piece of candy.
For you, Auden.
We can hear what she's thankful
That's
for,
okay with the parents.
since she already has that speech lined up.
Yeah, give us 2 things that you're thankful for. Where'd she go?
There she is.
Who are you looking for?
I am looking for Janny.
Danny.
Yeah.
Hi.
Can you come up and just tell us a couple of things that you said you were thankful for? And we gotta, if you could go to a mic,
Right here.
right here?
Come on up to the table, sweetie.
Yeah. Yeah,
Here?
yeah, because we're on TV.
Okay.
We want to hear what you're thankful for.
Well, thank you so much for the awards, and well, it's too much parents because I'm from Mexico, so I'm be here 4 years ago, and well, it's a lot of things like change. For the Thanksgiving, is the dinner, wow, like, it's too much good, and I don't know, it's glad for everything that people help me, and I have the, I don't know, say it like that. Yeah, it's like your parents, your teacher, you helping, so it's too much help for everybody, so, yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so I bet Karina Bauer is here now. Come on up. Who's got Karina? Do I have? Right here.
Come on up here and turn around if you would and face the audience.
Yeah.
Let me get you on TV.
Okay. Karina Bauer, 8th grade. Karina Bauer is an exceptional young person who consistently displays through words and actions, the ideals of responsibility. Both her teachers and peers at Basalt Middle School trust and respect her and can always count her to make good choices. Karina has proven to be a valuable part of our 8th grade leadership and takes initiative to make our school a better place for all. She cares about her own education and is always supportive of others. She is a great kid who is very responsible and leads by example. Congratulations, Karina. And here, this is yours too.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Karina. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
And we just want to thank all of you kids for doing these wonderful things and being really good at school and to your community, because this is the favorite part of our job, is giving you this. So anyway, you all get to leave this meeting now and go out in the hallway, and I think someone's going to maybe take a picture of all of you that got the awards tonight.
Tell
So
Karina.
thanks again. Huh?
Tell Karina she gets a pool pass.
Yeah. And Karina missed this announcement, but everybody who won the award gets a pool pass for the summer.
And we'd like to thank the parents for raising your
Yay,
children.
Yay, parents. Okay, you can go ahead out in the hallway with the
If
man
they
with
wanna watch the
the
rest of
blue
the meeting.
shirt. I know. No, they don't. I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
Okay, skipping around, we are now to item 7B, the underpass change order approval. Judy, and also, I think, is Nick is going to talk? And Gio. Got it. How are you guys?
Good, how about you?
Well,
Aaron?
great,
All right.
it's great. Judy, are you kicking this off?
Well, I was just gonna introduce these guys. So we have an excellent, we call it Team Basalt. Excellent committee. We meet every Wednesday to keep this project going, but I have to tell you, without these two individuals, we would never have gotten off the ground. And so, Nick is with RASTA and GR is with Pitkin County. And so they're really the experts on, we need the whole thing. Oh, no, I'm done. Okay, good. So, don't speak into them when I finish. And so, these two gentlemen will walk us through, and then I, can answer any of our financial questions inside of the project.
Okey-doke. What do you got for us?
I'll kick this off. And again, I'm GR Fielding. I'm acting as your resident engineer on the Basalt Underpass project. And today I'm with Nick Sen, who is our project engineer. And so Nick really takes care of a lot of the day-to-day contract management while I try to take a look at the higher level view of the project. First, I'd like to give the council a short update since it's been a little over a month since I've last sat before you. And generally, again, despite a little bit of a late start, things are going very well on the project. Things are moving along very well. We anticipated to have a lot of water issues and groundwater issues, which we, by and large, haven't seen yet on the project. The contractors had to deploy their pumps only several times in the duration thus far. And so that's helped expedite a lot of their work that they haven't been battling that Right now, as you drive by, you might be able to see down into that hole. The hole is just about down to the elevation that it needs to be. I think we have a little bit more digging to do, and we anticipate that just after Christmas that we'll actually have our first concrete pour on the project. We have fielded several complaints on the project. In general, they have been in regards to the temporary stops from commuters, dealing with lighting and ice issues and things of that nature. The contractor has been great to work with and been very reactive, and we've tried to be very proactive on our approach to changing the way people go about getting on and off the bus and doing their daily chores through the area. A few other complaints we've gotten were regarding traffic light timing. Most of those have subsided since we have gotten into the configuration, the lane configuration that we have now. With all that said, if there's no questions from the council, we can jump right into the change order.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, I believe that the council has in their packet a package that was prepared by SGM. And what you have is a very short memo that outlines the ramifications of adding a lane to Basalt Avenue on the south side. The thing to really cue in on is at the bottom of that memo, it talks about these benefits and how it would affect the queuing coming out of the south side. Operationally, I can say that the staff on the project has a lot of anecdotal data that backs up all of the scientific data that we have. And what it recommends is adding a lane coming out of the south side to alleviate the queuing problems that are current during the peak times of traffic through that area. The traffic study goes into a lot of that minutia. We don't necessarily want to get into that data because it's all here. Right now, we do have all of the players that would need to be involved already in the underpass project that would need to take a look at adding a lane and access to State Highway 82. And that is your emergency response folks, but primarily CDOT. Right now, they are taking a look at the proposal simultaneous to this, so that we can be nimble if the council feels that this is the right move to make. With that, Nick can fill in a few of the details of what's encompassed in that plan.
Yeah, and I'd say that, so the guy that was running the signal out there when we were moving things around was our assistant project engineer, myself, and so we did notice a lot of south side issues that the underpass will help by taking that signal timing out of the 82 signal, but adding that extra lane will help a lot in the afternoon and in the morning, especially getting people up alley. I will say that in general, we on the side have been trying to work with CDOT, and if you guys were to look at this later, you know, we know that you guys just had SGM do a traffic study to kind of look at some of the problems on the south side, and so we were able to glean from that traffic study one of these things we could do right now. And we think this would be a good time. Again, kind of like GR alluded to, all the players are there, so the contractor who does the signals is on the job, and all we're gonna do is add 5 foot to every pole to make this happen. Pavement will be done, the dirt will be done, it's all kind of happening at the same time. And so you're gonna gain a little economic benefit instead of doing it later while we have them here on the site now. And the CDOT guys too, we've been kind of working with them on the side. They're gonna give us an expedited review. And if you guys were to think about this later on, let's say in 5 or 10, or whenever a developer came in and you had them do it later, you would have to go through a whole separate permitting process. And so basically, because we already have a project and it's under the radar and we can make a change to the project, it just goes to the CDOT system way faster. And so, you know, if anything, I could, you know, embark with you guys.
Sold.
Yeah, if you guys want it or concerned about the money or something, I would just say buy the poles now so they fit an intersection in the future. That's just smart planning if you're indecisive or have budget woes. But Yeah, GR and I were involved early in the project, but we got to this point and we said, gee, Southside needs some help and needs it now. So it would be a great outcome if everybody has a nice underpass, safe way to cross the highway, and the south side has a better outcome of traffic movements during the day, especially at the afternoon rush after school.
It's great to hear that we can do something now and not at the end of the project, for instance. But you didn't say too much about the money part. Who is paying?
So in general, because any change that happens to this project, CDOT's giving you the maximum amount. And so that's why we don't think we have a whole lot of flexibility in the project, in the budget now. The way the project's set up, it's a pretty tight budget for the project. And so we think it would be a good investment for the town of Basalt to add a little money to the project and do it now. And we are doing this in unison. We're giving it to the contractor to price out now, and we gave it to CDOT to review at the same time, so that hopefully we have everybody agreeing and coming to you to ask for some additional money for the project to make this happen. That'll allow us, and the big time crunch is, believe it or not, it takes about 2 months to order a traffic light pole. And so basically they put their order in January and it'll be here in the spring. And so we walked through, and I know that Larry thought about this kind of stuff when they were going through the design process, and they kind of got dropped off because it was one of those we would like to have and couldn't get all the way through their design issues. But we just said, this is the small window. If we can make this happen, it would be a good thing, but it would be a small window to make this decision.
So is this is it the 23,000 that I'm looking at?
It's about 24,500. That's what our engineers have guessed the price to be. And I would say we're gonna be pretty close to that. We've given it to the contractor. They have 4 or 5 different subs where they have to get pricing from all the subs.
And is this completely on the town of Basalt?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron.
That's a restricted budget. That's in the project budget, so it's restricted
in there.
funds. So
We have it.
So we have some contingency money inside of there, and if not, Boyd and I talked about phasing it into 17, or we've been talking about capital, so we have the money in the streets budget. And so the good news for us, there was no land acquisition, we already have that, and the grading has already been done as part of the project. And so what Nick was talking about is, so just extending the mast of those arms, even if we can't continue it all right now, if we could get those arms, because the support system and all of that would be in place, and you could go backwards. I mean, if something changed, but I don't see it changing, but we couldn't go forward and have the longer arms without the support structure underneath of them.
Right, and just, you know, the detour, right now, we've built most of this template. And so if we keep on the path we are now on the job, we're gonna take it all back out. And so you would have to then, if you did it in 5 years or 10 years, you'd put it back in and pay for it to go back in. So we're building it now, we're just taking, you know, this opportune time to take advantage of it.
Yeah, one thing, with the estimate that we have at the 24,500, that takes into account the fact that we wouldn't have to take that back out. Again, if you were to go through this process, say in 5 or 10 years, you'd likely have at least this amount of money back into engineering and time for a consultant to deal with that process with CDOT. And then you would probably at least double that number to do the physical work.
I, for one, would be dead from old age by the time we got through this separately.
Mobilize, you know,
Right.
work through, and we have to bring, so the contractor's there, they're
Right.
only gonna be doing pavement. So the time, it just makes sense. So if we run a parallel course with CDOT, we've already got the blessing from the fire department.
I think we're pretty much sold here, so
I was gonna
Gary's
make-
very excited to talk. So
I'm just gonna make a motion to approve the change order for the Basalt Avenue underpass.
Second.
Okay, so we're gonna say Gary and Mark. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Done. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jared.
that was really fun. Very fun. Okay, Eagle County referral comments on the tree farm application. James.
Thank you. This item is consideration of referral comments on the Tree Farm revised preliminary plan application to Eagle County. As background, the Tree Farm applicant received sketch plan approvals back in 2009 from Eagle County to construct 249 residential units in a mixed-use project. Most of you are familiar with the site, but I'll point it out up here on the future land use map. Located right across from Willits Town Center, across Highway 82. This is their revised preliminary plan sketch. If you remember, the 2009 approval had development back here on the north side of the lake. They've reduced it, and I'll go over those numbers here. They kind of brought it back to the south side of the lake. So basically, in 2014, the applicant submitted a preliminary plan application to Eagle County. As I indicated, it included 400 dwelling units, as well as unlimited commercial space. The town provided referral comments back in December of 2014, which are included in your packet. And then the preliminary plan application was reviewed by the Regional Planning Commission. The Regional Planning Commission recommended denial of their preliminary plan application to the Board of County Commissioners. And then the application went dormant for a while, and then the applicant came back to Eagle County with a revised preliminary plan application to address some of the concerns that came out of the Regional Planning Commission hearings. And specifically, the application changed as is identified on the first page of your staff memo. The overall size of the PUD dropped to 42 acres from about 72, basically getting rid of all the stuff that was on the north side of the lake. The number of units dropped from 400 proposed in the preliminary plan application to 340. The maximum residential square footage that was included dropped to 379,000 square feet. And then the applicant added a maximum commercial square footage because there wasn't a maximum commercial square footage in the preliminary plan application. And they proposed that at about 134,000 square feet of commercial. The applicant also added a cap on the size of a single tenant, commercial tenant. They added that size at 30,000 square feet. In addition, they added the establishment of a metropolitan district to help fund services and infrastructure. In addition to the PIF, or the PIF that they had in there to equalize taxes between the town and Eagle County. So those are generally the adjustments that they made to the application. Staff has included a draft letter for the council's consideration in your packet. It's based on the 2014 comments that are included in your packet as well as the suggested conditions that the town staff provided to the Regional Planning Commission during the Regional Planning Commission's hearings on the preliminary plan application. So briefly going through the draft letter, the first paragraph provides an appreciation to the applicant for modifying the application, but it still expresses concerns that the town would like a smaller and more incremental development on the Tree Farm property. Item number 1 in the letter discusses the impact of the project on the town's 2 town centers. But it also supports the tax equalization proposal that was in the original preliminary plan application. So we don't have competition to buy goods between Eagle County and the town. And it recommends conditions that would further limit the impact on the town's 2 commercial centers. The proposed conditions would require a 15,000 square foot limit for any commercial tenant. Remember, in their revised application, they proposed a 30,000 square foot limit on any tenant. The proposed conditions in the letter would also limit the amount of commercial square footage to 40,000 square feet, which is about 100,000 square foot less than they're proposing in their application at this point. Another condition that's included in the draft letter would be to prohibit the hotel use on the Ace Lane Tree Farm property, so it wouldn't compete with the town's hotel across the street. Item number 2 in the draft letter urges the applicant to agree to annex before building permits would be applied. Since the county attorneys have indicated that the county can't force them to apply for annexation, which was established during the sketch plan review of the project. And then, as you continue through the letter, item number 3 talks about the transit parking and transportation facilities. It acknowledges that the applicant is going to pay for the pedestrian underpass at Willits contribution of about $850,000, which was part of the agreement when it was originally established. And then it also recommends that the applicant be required to provide 50 transit parking spaces in the immediate area of the underpass and the pedestrian stops. The applicant has proposed in their revised preliminary plan application to provide 20 spots on the Tree Farm property. The draft requirement in the letter would require them to provide 50 spaces. They could buy spaces in the Whole Foods garage. They could do a long-term lease in the Whole Foods garage or somewhere in the immediate area, or they could put all the spaces on the Tree Farm property, the 50 spaces that RAFTA is looking for. Item number 4 talks about requiring the applicants to provide an actual daycare space as a contribution to the application, similar to the discussions that we've had in the town about the Stotts Mill development providing a daycare space. Number 5 in the letter requests that the county require language prohibiting the combining of sign requirements for lots so that you don't have one significant sign on the highway there. And it also requires or requests that allowances be provided for meeting the town's lighting code requirements related to signage, so that there's not a benefit to that side of the highway from signage. Item number 6 in the draft letter is all about traffic. It requests that the traffic report be amended to address the impact on the Willits Lane roundabout. It suggests that if the applicant can't make an acceptable level of service work at that intersection, that they should reduce the level of development or be required to put in a left turn lane on the roundabout. I'll point this out, Ron, you don't have to move it. This came out of the Willits discussions previously. There's currently 2 lanes coming out of the Willits roundabout back towards Highway 82. There could be a requirement to add a 3rd lane coming out of there if they couldn't make the queuing work from the roundabout with the additional parking from the Tree Farm. That's one of the options to mitigate it, or they could reduce the development level.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
So, staff is suggesting that traffic from the other side of the highway is impacting the Willits roundabout?
According to the traffic report, it could, yes.
Okay, how is that?
Because you go to the center.
Because you got more traffic using Willits Town Center from across the highway.
Got it.
So it'll increase that
10-4.
intersection queuing. Additional discussion in that traffic piece, the letter would request that the county require a contribution from the developer towards providing fiber optics to coordinate the Willets Lane, the Elgebell Road, and the original road intersection lights. This came out of discussions with the Willets Town Center, additional square footage. CDOT is requesting that those lights be coordinated through fiber optics, and the Willets developers were required to provide a contribution to that. And then kind of the third paragraph under item number 6 requires the more auto-oriented uses be located near the intersection of Willets Lane. There's a bit of a concern that if you had more of the pedestrian-oriented uses over there, that you might get a lot of pedestrians trying to use the Willets Lane intersection to cross Highway 82 to get to Orchard Plaza or even Willets Town Center General Store. So staff in the letter suggests that the auto-oriented uses be near that intersection, and the more residential types of uses be closer over to the pedestrian underpass. Item number 7 suggests a contribution to WeCycle, similar to the Willets development contribution that was required, which would be an initial $60,000 donation, and then a $10,000 per year for the first 3 years contribution to WeCycle. And then item number 8 basically suggests that the town would like to have further discussions with the Eagle County Commissioners about the conversation related to the amount of growth that should actually occur in Eagle County and how much development should happen in Eagle County, similar to the comments that we had in the Fields subdivision comments. So basically, that's the letter. Staff would suggest asking questions if you have them related to the application or the comments, and then providing council discussion. Your options are you could direct staff to send the comments as drafted, or you could suggest amendments to the comments for staff to send.
Okay.
I have a couple.
I really am happy to see that everything is moved off that north slope, that area back there, onto like highly dense development. But I guess I would ask if any conversation has occurred about putting a conservation easement on that piece? Would they do that?
The applicant with the original application proposed that there be a conservation subdivision on a portion of the property. Let me point that out.
And can you define a conservation subdivision?
Yeah.
Yeah, conservation subdivision is basically a subdivision that, in order for a conservation of land, would allow for the applicant to have some additional single-family lots, is what they originally proposed it as. They are proposing to downzone this to the resource zone district, so not necessarily put a conservation easement on it, but downzone it so it would be less intensive use. And then they're still proposing, I talked to the applicant group about this, they're still proposing some single-family lots up here in a cluster subdivision, we'll call it.
Well, if the majority of the council supports it, could we add that to our letter? That we would like to see that in a conservation easement?
You could, sure.
I don't see why not. Tom?
Conservation easement isn't a conservation easement if it's required. You can ask for a no development restriction, but
Okay.
the whole, in order to gain the tax advantage of a conservation easement, it can't be a governmental requirement. So you have to take that into account in making the recommendation. I think if you want it to be something that's imposed by the county, you would have to call it a no development restriction or something similar.
Right. Jen?
James, can you explain a little bit more about what a resource zone is? And would that allow for, let's say, a tree farm, or what can occur in a resource zone district?
Well, I think in the resource zone district, and I can't quite cite Eagle County's code, But I do think the tree farm itself could continue to operate in that zone district. I think that there are some more or less dense residential uses that could occur in Eagle County's resource zone district. But it's less intensive than basically everything else you've seen there.
Thank you.
And just FYI, if it is a resource zone district, or if it's zoned down to nothing, all you have to do is upzone it to develop it. Katie?
So I had the same thought that Jackie had, that in order for me to contemplate any affirmative comments related to this application, the reduction in acreage is going to have some forever requirement that it is not built out. And I, through Tom, understand we can't require a conservation easement, but something so that they don't downzone it now to appease us and then upzone it 12 months from now or whatever it
Right,
is.
exactly.
The only way I can feel in any shape or form willing to say anything other than denial would be that that is forever conserved. Can you explain this, do you know the next steps in the review process? Because the application prior to all these changes obviously was denied by our local, Eagle County Regional Planning Commission. So now it's preliminary, it goes to the commissioners for review, and then it goes to final, or
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, the way we understand it from talking to Eagle County staff is the next step for the application is for the revised preliminary plan to be reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners. And they can either, approve the preliminary plan application or deny it. If they were to approve the preliminary plan application, then they would have to apply for a final plan review. But it's less substantive, it's more technical requirements.
Okay. I have more comments. When it comes to the tax equalization plan, I understand why, and I support that, but I'm wondering, with an increased tax, does that just go to Eagle County?
Yes.
We'll never, ever see a dime of that.
Goes to the development.
It goes to the development.
Yeah.
He gets to take it. It doesn't in any, it doesn't in any shape or form allow for Eagle County to provide additional services like we've discussed. The need for this development is going to stress our
They're
services.
suggesting that the tax equalization will be able to pay for additional law enforcement services, and they've proposed for a contribution, let me see, I can tell you how much, to go to law enforcement, to offset the impacts.
It seemed like it was around 140,000,
That seems right.
and we requested closer to 240,000.
224 is, I think, what we
It
requested.
just seems, that just doesn't make sense to me that we would equalize the taxes and the developer would be able to pocket any percentage of that. Does not make sense to me.
Okay.
I feel that 100% of that equalization should be going to Eagle County to then provide the town of Basalt to provide services. Otherwise, this is just a way in which a developer is profiting off of future tenants. So that is a concern. Point 2 regarding urging the applicant to annex the property into the town of Basalt prior to building permit. I'm just curious, what advantage does that then give the town of Basalt?
Well, it's kind of a carryover from our 2014 letter. Originally, when the applicants applied to Eagle County, the town was encouraging Eagle County to make them annex into the town. And the Eagle County attorneys at the time said, no, we can't make them
Right.
annex into the town. You know, I think it's more oversight on the part of the town in the future, if they were to annex after approvals. Certainly, we would prefer that they would come in through the annexation process now,
Right.
but we've been told that's not gonna happen, so.
You know, I think, you know, the other thing is, we have properties in town where they were developed and then annexed, and just, you know, our record keeping and what happens in the future is just a lot easier if we're controlling it.
Okay.
And, you know, and quite frankly, it also is revenue. If you kind of look at the Stotts Mill Economic Report, which you'll see later, tremendous, I mean, significant amount of money comes through the building permit review, you know, process. But I'd say a lot of it is record keeping and
Okay.
just kind of the issue, what happens when you do annex later and you don't have access to the files and what happened.
If they're annexed in, are they then under our tax code, our tax level? And then they would be equal with Willits, and there's no need to have the equalization?
Yes, but again, you know, we can't force the
Right,
annexation. I think that's
right.
kind of the tricky part here.
Uh-huh.
And there
But-
could be an agreement in place with the annexation where they, you know, hold the tax structure that they proposed, so.
Okay, so we have to
There's some
closely monitor all of that.
science to that.
Okay. Part 3, the $857,505, is that owed to the town of Basalt?
That one.
Well, that's a little I think we'll need to spend some time on how that's allocated out, because they're actually, you know, I didn't pull that agreement. There's an agreement that RAFTA and the town of Basalt entered into when Willis Town Center contributed the 910, and there was an intent.
And I appreciate protecting our night sky. When it comes to your point about, what is the road? It's the final paragraph in traffic.
Willets Lane.
Willets Lane, hello. Really important that there's absolutely nothing there that would allow a pedestrian to be safe. There's no way that could be safe.
Sure.
And just stressing that, that is just asking for people to have a terrible end. And then point 8, where you mentioned the UGB, I think what's becoming apparent with both this application and the fields is that there's this mid-valley plan and land use, and it seems like the community is railing against it and saying this isn't meeting my expectations for my community and what I want to happen in the Mid-Valley. And so I think that in addition to talking to the Eagle County about our IGA, the UGB, and everything else, we as a community need to somehow come together and have, I would suggest, an entirely new process and new and updated plan and land use. Because I wasn't part of it, but from what I understand for those that were part of it, it was maybe 3 community members that were showing up to this, and that there wasn't a lot of local community input. And it seems to be what's guiding Mid-Valley Development and our Eagle County commissioners, and it doesn't seem to be in alignment with the voices, majority voices that show up to these meetings over and over and over again. Thank you for writing this letter.
Okay, I have a couple more. First of all, I want to say that I have on my list to update the master plan, because I think there are some reasons why this doesn't really fit with today's world, and that is, if I remember right, because I was on the planning commission then, it was occurring kind of around the time of the recession, where there wasn't pressure for growth, number one. Nobody really gave a shit about, about any of it, quite honestly. And I think that there are now a couple hundred people who would like to participate in updating that master plan, because it's not right. It doesn't apply in today's world. Another one is, what exactly is the difference with regard to us and the taxpayers and who receives the money between the special district idea and the TIF.
Well, the special district and the PIF,
PIF.
public improvement fee, they both go back to the developer.
They both do.
For use, yeah.
Okay, was my question. And then lastly, I think we should be looking at this whole thing as if it was gonna be in the town of Basalt someday, because I think that's really the direction we should be going with this, is working very hard to get this, it's gonna be approved, and I think we would like to get it approved so that it looks like town and acts like town and is comfortable for everybody. So I think when I look at this over here, I try to figure out, like pedestrians from Willits walking over there, and that's now part of Basalt, and in saying that, I would have to say, what could be a carrot for annexation? Because they don't have to annex. So have we thought in terms of how could we entice them to annex after they get approved? I mean, they're not gonna annex before because they don't trust us, which is fine. But after they get approved, it would be nice to have something to ask them, invite them to be part of this town, because it's not gonna work very well if they're not.
We can have more discussions about that. I don't know that we've necessarily in the past looked at too many carrots. I think it was more trying to, look at trying to make them annex.
Well, and the truth is, we can't exact anything. They're not under our auspices or whatever. I don't know how to say that, but yeah.
So sticks and carrots aside, what it comes really down to is the communication. And besides this letter, this is a grand development, and this is a very impactful application on the Roaring Fork Valley. And has there been, and I would love to take part of a roundtable with Eagle County Commissioners and discussing this in person, and Scott Hunn, just to keep the communication open and have that face behind it. Just as John Peacock from Pitkin County was kind enough to attend our meeting, it makes a huge impact, and I'd like to continue that forward with Eagle County. And as well, I'd love to hear, I'm going to mirror Katie and Jackie's about concerns about the Mid-Valley Area Community Plan and revisiting that. And that's a goal that I would like to see on the 2017 of something that we accomplish. And I'd love to hear from staff what steps would be to initiate the process, just as a side note. And as well, I have one question about the frontage road from Kodiak Lane to the frontage road, which accesses Highway 82. And I'd like to, hear from staff of what's your take on that. I know that it's necessary to have 2 points of egress from the development, but is there any sort of future conflict or issues with that, safety-wise, attempting?
Well, we had SGM look at the traffic study that was prepared as part of the revised preliminary plan application. They didn't really focus in on that intersection as being too much of a problem. I think thought is that the majority of the traffic will actually be using the Willits Lane signal, but certainly it could get a share of it down there. We could look at it in more depth and ask SGM to look at it in more depth, because they would be the experts on whether it really is a safe scenario or not. Their traffic study has indicated that it is.
Okay.
Can I just tag onto that for a
Yeah.
second?
Yeah.
Can you make a left from the tree farm at that
You
intersection?
cannot make a left. That
Can't.
I don't believe you can, no.
You're coming on to 82,
right, to go down
Yeah,
Valley.
you can.
I
You
would
can
think
take it
so.
right going down Valley.
You can turn.
Yeah, and you
Can
can
you
turn
go
left too.
through the
Yeah.
intersection?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Well,
Yes.
because, yeah, that's the, it's not the right turn that I'm worried about, it's the left turn
Always.
out of there that's, I mean, we have problems in Blue Lake, we have people dying, that try to make left turns, and there's acceleration lanes, so I think, I mean, that's one of my, I'm sorry to
No,
tag
I-
on, but that was a big concern of mine, because that, looking at it there, if you make a left turn, I mean, you're just asking for it.
So did you have something else?
Well, I have a lot of different things, but I'll let
Yeah,
her
so
finish.
just to finish with that, I don't necessarily want SGM to look into it. I'd like Eagle County to look into it, but it to be a point of concern.
Okay.
And just to reiterate, having the roundtable, keeping the communication open, that's a big priority of mine, and I am in support of all the other points of the letter. Gary?
Who's up
Auden?
first?
Either way. I would modify the letter and recommend denial of the project. I think that you guys have pointed out the Mid-Valley conversation is broken. You know, we should be sitting down with the Eagle County Commissioners and saying, what do we want? Where do we want it? What's okay? Here's why I don't like it. I think we already have a traffic problem. It's gonna get worse. We're gonna negatively impact commercial in Willits and in downtown Basalt, and those can't afford to be impacted. We haven't built out South Side and Willits, which should be the first things to be built out. This is outside the urban growth boundary. I wouldn't annex it. I wouldn't include it.
Just as a correction, it is actually in the town's urban growth.
Okay, it is.
So don't use that one.
All right.
It doesn't match our zoning.
Doesn't quite match our future land use, right?
Okay. So to me, it just seems like maybe 10 or 20 years from now, after we've built out South Side, after we've built out Willits, you think about more housing and more commercial, but I wouldn't do it now. So I'd say, hey, we oppose it, but if Eagle County approves it, here are the conditions. I think you guys did a great job on that. I will say, the green measures that these guys have proposed, from the solar to how they build the buildings, is admirable and exemplary, and I like that a lot, but the broader impact, I think, is the project itself.
Yeah, Gary.
Well, and I totally agree with Auden that I would like to change that first paragraph, the end of that first paragraph, and not say is unwavering. I just would say to request the Eagle County BOCC deny this application. So just to be clear on that, in the first paragraph. And then, you know, obviously in the same vein, I really appreciate staff saying, if you do go forward, I wouldn't just say the town's primary concern and objection is just the competition. I mean, all of these things are major town concern. Traffic and transit are a major town concern. I know what we were talking about in 2014, but today we see the traffic and transit issues, and I think we should look at what RAFTA's gonna comment on, because, you know, you're just adding a lot of service level to this area that I don't know if RAFTA, or I don't think RAFTA can handle. And so, you know, and I'm really concerned about the traffic issues, the stacking, both at Willett Lane and the other side. It talks about green time, that's gotta be reduced on Highway 82 to increase green time for the lights on those pieces. I mean, we're gonna have a traffic nightmare there. So I really believe that we need to have a conversation with the Eagle BOCC sooner than later to really voice our concerns, get them over here to just have this conversation, because I thought we were going in the right direction with them, but then you saw what happened with the fields, and so, I don't know. And then one other piece is, just to be technical, that on the daycare, can you change the reasonable rent to consistent with existing rents for daycare in the Mid-Valley area? Because I worry about when you say reasonable, they can say, oh, $40, that's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but yeah, no, I think that's, let me see. That's it.
And if I could just bring something up, and I think maybe Susan and James can address this better. But my understanding from all these many years is that the Eagle County Commissioners will not talk one-on-one, three-on-one, three-on-three about an open file to anybody. So we're not gonna talk to them while the file's open, but we could definitely talk to them about like future master plan update kind of things. And I don't disagree that the things shouldn't be approved, but the reality is that if you walk through, whoever they are, I think we know, have addressed all the concerns that were in the last letter. And so I just feel like I don't know about the planning commission, but I would bet that it's not going to the planning commission,
going
is
back
it?
to the
So I would bet that the county commissioners are,
paragraph of the letter, as Auden and Gary suggested, to recommend denial, but in the case that you do decide to approve it, Eagle County, here are concerns and suggested
okay,
conditions.
so on that one, let's have a motion, so they have a specific direction.
I make a motion that we approve the letter as it stands, but begin by recommending denial. What are we doing about the other comments?
Yeah.
Well, should we
Yeah,
just
we
do
gotta
this
do all
one
the-
first, because that was a biggie?
You want-
Yeah, if you could do that one first, and then I'll hit some of
Add the
other-
deny phrase.
Second.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then, so the other items that we had, that came up were adding to number 8, conversation about the Mid-Valley Area Community Plan, in addition to the conversation about the urban growth boundary and level of development in Eagle County. There was discussion about supporting the tax equalization plan, but suggesting that those funds should go to Eagle County and be reimbursed to the town for town
Is that
services.
possible?
You can ask it,
mean-
sure.
So it can be set up that way?
What's this?
I mean,
I think Tom should listen to this
they could
one.
say no.
Give me that again.
The PIF.
To the tax equalization, the PIF, that the money could go to Eagle County rather than back to the developer,
For public improvements,
so public improvement.
Is that a PIF?
not really.
It could, but they would have to.
Spend the
allow for
money
it to.
right there, because that's not what a definition of PIF is.
Like,
We can ask for it.
you can ask for anything.
Is anybody against asking for the PIF to go to the county instead of to the developer?
No.
Okay,
And then there is, stressing barriers at Willets Lane to pedestrian crossing. Everybody agree with that? We already have it in here, but we can strengthen it.
the conservation easement, can we just say, we sure would like to see that?
You wouldn't
As a
wanna say
voluntary-
conservation easement, you wanna say, you know.
No growth. or-
Yeah,
No development.
Okay.
some permanent protection on future growth of the other areas.
Okay,
Because, yeah, we do run into tax issues.
And then there's Gary's suggestion on the daycare rents.
yeah.
Everybody agree with
Anybody
that?
not okay with that?
And then there was James, looking at, again, at the left turn lane coming out of,
Kodiak Lane,
For
frontage
preventing
road.
left turn lane
Yeah.
coming out of
Yes.
Kodiak. Anybody have issues with that?
No. I just have one more thing, and it might be something Jen already said, but I've heard this from other people too, that it would really help this growth mess that we are under if we had frontage roads everywhere. And I don't like the Evans, or whatever that road is, that goes right through the neighborhood, but a true frontage road along the highway. Is that something that's ever been talked about at either planning commission or at the county commissioners level? About frontage roading clear down to
little clear up valley to the next.
It has, I think, actually Lee Barger brought it up in some of his work, but, I mean, actually it's a bigger issue. What do you want to save, the open space buffer along Highway 82, or, I mean, it's kind of a longer discussion.
It is, okay. I just think that somehow, some of this pressure has got to get away from these single intersections some way. Anyway,
Well, and it was talked about during when we were putting in the original lane light. It was talked about because that's why it's a temporary light and not a full light, was to eventually do frontage roads on both sides, so you wouldn't need that additional light, correct? I was on council at the
Yeah,
time.
that was the one I was thinking about, that we were talking about putting one there.
Okay.
And changing that
Well,
whole.
I mean, that's a bigger discussion that we need to
You
have.
could say that we want to look at it and not buy off on it, but.
Yeah.
You'd have
It's
to
not
get the
part of this development, because they're actually providing a frontage road in their development.
You'd have to get the consent from the Aspen Junction HOA to go across.
but can we put that on our radar screens, because frontage roads seem to help a little bit. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's generally what we heard, so.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to
Do that.
I'll make a motion to amend the letter as stated by staff, to Eagle County on the tree farm application.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Gary and Auden, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
But we can do that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, goody, we did that one already. The next item is council direction on, no, we did that one already.
What?
Am I going the wrong direction?
Stream side improvements. Additional stream side improvements.
7D.
7D.
Oh, we didn't do that one yet,
No,
okay.
you
7D.
kept crossing things off. It's cool.
Right. Oh, good, we're just gonna cross them off. Okay, 7D. So what are we doing with this one?
This would be to approve IGA with Pitkin County.
Do you really need an IGA, Ron? Do you just need whatever?
Or motion
Need
to
an
approve.
you don't need an IGA.
Motion to approve an agreement then.
What was it exactly,
That they're gonna
Susan?
handle the 24th.
Just one second,
But-
let me ask Taff, what was the language that we wanted to, a motion?
Why don't you hear from
Okay,
John?
Ron.
Well, there were, John and I talked about a couple of minor conditions.
We
that-
just need a motion, because we just talked about it and we all understood it, we just need the language.
Yeah, maybe that we, just kind of, work out a payment, agreement with the, Picken County.
It's not a payment agreement.
It's
in
not a
lieu of
payment agreement.
Let John.
Yeah, John, what did you ask for? It was
It's
easy.
a good thing I stuck around.
It is.
So what we need is both a consent and release. And so the consent is to work within the town's right-of-way. And then,
Okay.
No,
No.
you're not
Oh, we're
approving
not.
that.
No,
You have
it's
to
just
have an
direction.
agreement.
Okay, Cindy,
So to give
Giving
us
direction to
staff
staff to put
direction
that
to
together.
prepare the necessary agreements to give John what he's asked for.
is there a motion?
I move to
No, you gotta
direct
bring them back.
staff to create.
Just say
Right
Tom,
now, if they're
just
not
so
written
moved.
Yes, so moved.
So moved what Tom said, is there a second?
Second.
They know that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks for
Thanks,
staying,
John.
John.
No, you can't do it without a writing. Is this hard to understand?
I think the council just agreed to,
You can,
Yeah,
you can't say you can work in our right-of-way without an agreement that says you can work in our right-of-way. You can't do it by a verbal statement.
We just did that.
Right.
I, yeah,
There has to be a written agreement. It's not complicated, but we have to have one. Sure.
it could be a permit, it could be an agreement, it could be
Yeah.
We'll reach
anything.
an agreement. We'll have
Yeah.
an agreement.
Thanks, John.
Not gonna be a problem.
And do we also need to do something we do on the multi-jurisdictional Comcast franchise?
Yeah,
yes.
formally, yeah.
Let's have a motion, if anybody remembers.
I make a motion that we approve and join in a multi-jurisdictional use of an attorney for purposes of cash contract.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Bernie and Auden, further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thanks.
Let's see. Next item is 8, second reading of ordinances. This is public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 31, an ordinance levying general property taxes for the year 2016 to help defray the cost of government for the town of Basalt. Judy, I'm sure.
This is your second reading, and so, we haven't had any changes, I haven't had any comments or any public come in to, ask any questions, so, unless the council has questions, I won't go over all of the information again.
They're motioning you to
If
be
we
in front
have,
of a,
to have a microphone.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move that the town council approve ordinance number 32, series of 216 on the second reading.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so,
We still have to go,
This is 31, Bernie. We need to do 8 first.
oh, sorry. Well, just ignore that.
doesn't matter, we gotta do a public hearing?
Yeah.
okay, so this is a public hearing on this ordinance number 31. We're going to open the public hearing at 7:25. Is there anyone in the public who has any comments regarding this ordinance? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and turn it over to Bernie for the motion.
Mayor, I move the town council approve ordinance number 31, series of 216 on second reading.
Second.
Okay, Bernie's first, Mark's the second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Well, don't we do, isn't this the one we were doing roll call vote on the budget? Yeah, okay, let's
Why
do
is
it.
that?
Because appropriations are doing by, and then you don't have to do the individual each time you do
Got it.
Yes.
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 Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Next item is public hearing and second reading of ordinance 32, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds and spending agencies and the amounts and for the purposes set forth below for the town of Basalt. Judy, did you want to present this one as well?
Again, I have not had anyone come in from the public, with any additional questions since our first reading, so I'll turn it back to council.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 7:27. Is there anyone that has any comments regarding this public hearing? Okay, I'll close it at 7:27 and a half. Council.
I have a question, Judy, regarding, please educate me very quickly on the Conservation Trust, and are there any ideas or future plans for investments with that, and how can it be utilized?
Sure, so our Conservation Trust Fund, we collect, these are your lottery funds, and so we used to get a larger chunk, but now we have a lot of more special districts, and so our piece of pie has gotten smaller. And so what we've used this for in the past is matching funds on GOCO grants. And so at this point in time, we haven't, I think the last one that we did was when we did the bridge down here. And so we haven't used the funds since then, but it's always good matching funds whenever you go after something that they like it when you have multi-jurisdictions.
Okay, great. And then I suppose we will go over the budget finally, that's resolution.
The resolution that's in front of you is simply the same numbers as before, and it will break it out by how much debt, how much unappropriated fund balance, they're all the same numbers.
Got it.
Did we have a motion on this one?
Mayor,
Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 32, series of 2016 on second reading.
second.
Pam, roll call.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yes.
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 Here.
Aye.
It's good that you're still here.
I'm here.
Thank you, Judy. Okay. Let's see. We must be, thank you. It's not even late. Welcome, guys. How's everything? Good. Okay, this is a public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 26 of 2016, an ordinance of the town reinstating and amending the 2009 Stotts Mill development approvals for the single-family portion of the Stotts Mill development, including up to 61 units, a public facility daycare, and the dedication and improvement of rights-of-way and parks on the single-family portion of the Stotts Mill property, and granting sketch site plan approval for the multifamily portion of the development up to 96 additional dwelling units, together with extending and increasing the corporate limits of the town of Basalt and providing initial town zoning for the single-family portion of the Stotts Mill development. James.
Thank you. It is a continued public hearing, and it is second reading on the ordinance that would approve of the Stotts Mill application to reinstate the single-family portion of the development from 2009. And then it would also grant sketch site plan approval for the multifamily portion of the development, which is proposed to be larger than was approved in 2009. There's been 3 prior meetings at the council level on the application. The council has had discussions regarding density. The council felt that the 156 unit option was more appropriate than the 204 unit option that was discussed. Council considered daycare contributions, and there was suggestion from council that the 4,000 square foot daycare core and shell space was an appropriate contribution. There have been discussions at the council and the P&Z levels about traffic mitigation. We had the discussion about the laneage change that is actually going to happen with the underpass here earlier in the meeting. And then there was discussion at prior council meetings related to the Cody Lane roundabout concept that would add to the queuing potential to accommodate it. And there's conditions in the draft ordinance that would require the applicant to contribute $165,000, which is based on their fair share of traffic to the Cody Lane roundabout improvement. There have been discussions about the Southside Drive cross-section that was formulated by the post committee in conjunction with the Pickens County Parks, Open Space, and Trails Committee, and that was evaluated at prior meetings. At the last council discussion on Stotts Mill, Bruce Kimmel came and provided his conclusions related to the fiscal study that he did. Basically, his conclusions identified that there weren't red flags related to the applicant's ability to carry out the project. There have been discussions about Allison Lane connection to the Southside subdivision, as was discussed at the last meeting. The way that it is programmed is that there would be a pedestrian connection between the Stotts Mill development and the Southside subdivision on Allison Lane that could be converted to an emergency access in vehicular access if a need arised. Some of the items that are left to discuss at the council level would include the South Park programming and whether it should be an active park or a passive park. The tennis center group pulled the proposal for the tennis center. You've got a letter in your packet that describes that removal from consideration. So the draft ordinance, as it's in your packet, now requires the 2009 active park plan that was approved, which includes 3 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts and a play area, as well as some bathrooms for the public to use. So that's the way it's included. The applicant has some discussion on that. Since the packet went out on Monday, the applicant has provided a revised scenario for an active park, and the applicant will talk about that as part of their presentation. Vested rights is another discussion item that council needs to talk about a bit further. There has been some discussion at the prior meetings on this topic. The applicant proposed 7 years of vested rights. The ordinance as it's drafted now would provide for 5 years of vested rights and the ability for the applicant to come back and request an extension to the town council. And then also fiscal impacts. The council at the last meeting asked staff to go back and see if we could quantify the fiscal impacts of the project on the town. So the town staff went back and looked at the EPS model that was developed back in 2009 by Economic Planning Systems, EPS, as basically a model that would calculate the cost of services and revenues to the town as a result of a development program. It was used for several projects in 2009 to look at the economic impacts. One of them was Stotts Mill. There were a couple other projects back in 2009 that it was used on. And then we updated it in 2013 when the continuing care and retirement community came through the process. So it was 2 or 3 years old based on the last update. So staff updated the model based on the new budget scenario that you just passed, as well as cost of services in terms of police officer salaries, in terms of public works salaries, and costs of services. And basically what it showed at the conclusion of running it was basically there's going to be a significant one-time revenue to the town at the beginning of the development process with building permit fees, impact fees, and revenues. And then over time, once you get to a build-out, there would be a net loss to the town for providing services. And this is pretty typical of pure residential development because you're not getting significant revenues without a commercial source as part of it. Be happy to answer any questions, or if somebody wants to go through the model separately, outside of this council meeting, staff would be happy to look at that. Public outreach is another item. The council requested that there be some additional public outreach. The applicant has contacted the Southside HOA to set up some open houses in January. Staff has linked the ordinance that you have in your packet and the approvals for the single-family portion so that they're only valid if the multifamily receives the final plan approvals. So we think that feedback received in January from open houses would still be valid and help guide the review of the proposal in the final plan review. So this evening, staff would recommend hearing some additional applicant comments, asking questions of staff and the applicants, and then taking public comments. Ultimately, there are some adjustments to conditions that you have that staff has handed out, and be happy to go over those after the rest of the discussion has occurred. We do have Briston Peterson and Mark Chain here this evening representing the applicant group. Guys, you have some additional discussion for us?
Yeah, so James, thank you for that overview. It's good to be back in front of the council here. With regard to a handful of James' points, vested rights, we accept the 5 years vested rights. The South Park, I'd like to have a discussion with council. We have a proposal on the South Park that I'd like to share with you. The fiscal impacts is something clearly the town needs to evaluate. I have been in touch with Cheryl, who's the president of the Southside HOA, and after the holidays, we're going to set up a meet and greet with the Southside residences. We've done that before on the prior application. So I look forward to doing that in January. Primarily on the South Park, as you know, the tennis court folks have bowed out of the application. The economic model that we presented to the town assumed that the tennis operator was actually going to proceed with the South Park development. So with that in mind, we're proposing a slight modification to the South Park that we'd like to share with you. If we could pass this out, James. Where what we did is we really would like to see a passive park in the South Park, but I understand it's the position of the town, or the majority of the council members here, that you do want to see some activity in the South Park. So in lieu of 3 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts, we're actually proposing 2 tennis courts, 1 full basketball court, which includes a half peewee court. So if you look at the sketch on the first page, that's pretty much the layout of what we're proposing. And then the second page, we're showing you the dimensions of a tennis court, and we're showing you the dimensions of a basketball court. And in summary, the South Park is approximately 2.79 acres, or 121,000 square feet. When you look at what the 2009 approvals included, it's roughly 33,600 square feet of hard surface in the South Park, which represents 27% of the South Park. When you look at the configuration and just the amount of real estate that shows on the South Park, it really doesn't allow for a lot of flexibility for other types of uses, whether somebody wants to have a soccer game, a pickup wiffle ball game, throw a frisbee, run their dogs back and forth, whatever the case may be. So our proposal, clearly our first proposal, would be to have a completely passive park. I doubt that the board members would accept that, so we're proposing 2 tennis courts and 1 full basketball court that would have a peewee court that goes effectively, instead of going east-west, it goes north-south. So I'm sure you've probably seen these configurations. And that represents about 20,000 square feet of hard surface, or 16% coverage on that South Park. We just feel that the 2009 application allows a lot of very pervious density on there, and it makes it a very hard South Park that would be overbearing. So with that in mind, those are the key points that we'd like to discuss with you tonight. Mark, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think the 5-year vested rights, I think that meets the development team's goals. And originally, we were going to try to do some of the public outreach before the holidays, but we really thought this meeting was going to be devoted to the tennis center, and the tennis center, by the time they dropped out, the holiday season was already upon us, so that's why we suggested it go to January. And James, does the board have the comments related to the affordable housing modifications?
Yes, they do.
You want us to address that now, or?
If you have issues with them, absolutely, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we thought that the way the proposal, the ordinance was originally written, it provided flexibility. You know, how this plan finalizes at the end. It could be all rental, it could be lots, it could be for sale units, and we thought the goal was best to keep it flexible and meet the guidelines. And we think the guidelines are written enough so that even if we had to change in the middle and go from rentals to condominium units, we think that all the agreements and the guidelines give direction. So we don't think we would need to go back, start over from scratch, or have attorney review. We're just trying to keep the process streamlined, because at the end of the day, when you're getting ready to dig the agreements, all the covenants take a long time to review, much longer than most people think. So that's why we liked the way it was written originally.
So those are our only comments. So thank you for meeting again.
Okay. Yeah, Ron?
council, the staff would be okay with a 5-year vested rights, but we would not support reducing the recreational amenities that were in the original agreement. Meaning they should build the tennis courts and basketball courts that were originally agreed to.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, that's a recommendation.
Oh, but
It's a
why?
recommendation, so it's up to council.
I'm just wondering why. I mean, if I understood what you were saying, were you just trying to free up more open space on that small park parcel by?
Exactly. Well, it's two things. One, our financial model was assuming that the tennis court facility was moving forward. Okay, so that's one factor. The second factor is the amount of impervious surface on that South Park. All along, since day one, we've always been an advocate of a passive park. We feel that there's, plenty of opportunities if somebody wants to play tennis or go, basketball, if they go to the high school, if they go to Crown Mountain Park, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of opportunities for that. So what we're trying to do is create a park that is not overbearing by one or two modalities of recreation.
So the original one was 3 tennis courts?
It was 3 tennis courts and 2 basketball courts, and what we're proposing is 2 tennis courts and 1 basketball court that actually is combined to be a full-court basketball court, but also a peewee court. So there's effectively 4 basketball hoops on the single basketball court.
So I guess I'll go back to staff again and just say, why did you feel it was important to keep the original?
Part of it really comes from the recommendations that we were getting from our other committees in terms
Okay.
of our Basalt Planning and Zoning Board, and also our Parks, Open Space and Trails Committee, in terms of really having an active park. I think that you're actually going to hear in the public comment from Diana, who's still representing the tennis group, about the need for having more than 2 tennis courts, but I'll wait for her comment. I think that it might be important for you not to have a full discussion until you, have
Right.
your public hearing
Right.
portion.
Okay. Right. Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, our point is that, how much of one activity do you really need on one park?
Right, I hear you.
Right? We're really trying to create flexibility for the neighborhood, the community, and not have 2 modalities really dictate the source of the South Park.
Gotcha. Okay. If that's all from applicant and staff, we can go to the public hearing, is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, I'll open the public hearing at 7:46. Are there members of the public that would like to speak? Hi, Diana. We need to get you on a mic somewhere.
I will fix this up here, I think.
I don't know.
See if that'll work, hopefully.
It's like a rubber band.
Okay, so all of you guys know me. I'm Diana Elliott, and I am one of the 2 tennis pros that works with Dorothy Howard for the Basalt Recreation Department during the summer, which usually runs from about May all the way till October, November, depending on the weather. In the original agreement that I have of 2009 and then in 2016, it actually has drinking fountain, trail signage, bicycle parking facilities, 2 basketball courts and 4 tennis courts, and then the historic cabin. And the reason that there is a need for more than just 2 courts is that when I teach during the summer, I have probably in my classes between 16 and 20 kids. And I can double them up on 2 courts and work it. But then I also have people that are standing there, adults, waiting for another court. So sometimes I take those 16 to 20 kids and I put them on 1 court and we drill. But ideally, in order to make it work, I would have 2 courts of doubles and then 2 courts of singles so that I can rotate them all around. And I know that right now, the other tennis pro, I do the 11 to 17. The other tennis pro does the 10 and under group. And we have to always schedule what days we're doing what, because he also has only those 2 courts that he uses in Basalt currently.
I know that at some point in the future, and I don't know if it's 5, 6, how many years down the line, but Shannon Palin from the Roaring Fork School District has told me that they will probably take those 2 courts out of Basalt and use them for employee housing. Now, of course, I'm always talking to her and saying, please don't do that, because if you do that, then we have no courts. So from a tennis pro who runs a kids type of program out there and stuff, I pretty much need 3 courts, if not 4 courts, for the amount of kids that I have out there. And we always want to continue to grow this program, Dorothy and I, because it brings in much needed revenue for the recreation department, and it teaches the kids the lifetime sport. And I think that if Stotts Mill is going to be an affordable housing complex, families, kids, they're going to be going to Basalt High School at some point, Basalt Middle School. That's where I get my kids from that are in these programs. And so I think it's a benefit for those future residents to be able to have that opportunity, to have those 4 courts out there and be able to participate in the tennis programs, because at the high school level with my high school teams, we walk over to the middle school right now and use those 2 courts, and I'm in the same situation where I've got 20 to 25 kids because I run a no-cut tennis team. And sometimes it's really hard. I've got kids standing around. I throw them a jump rope, or I have them run, or I have them do something. But having those 4 courts is definitely a plus for the program. So I would like to make sure that the 2009 agreement of 2 basketball courts and 4 tennis courts does remain. I'd like to say I'm speaking for Post, who wanted it. I'm speaking for P&Z, who wanted it. And I'm speaking for staff who sees the need for it, as well as Dorothy from the Recreation Department. So thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Other public comments about this application? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Diana was saying there were 4 courts originally in the 2009 plan, but this looks like 3.
So staff found an error in the 2009 ordinance that said 4 courts, but the plan that was approved had 3 courts and 2 3 tennis courts and 2 basketball.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, council, questions?
I'm going to go back to what was said earlier. I guess I didn't get what Mark was saying about let the market decide. What do you mean by that, and about not wanting to go back and look at the covenants? And somehow I just didn't get that all together.
Well, today we received an update of the housing component. I believe that's Exhibit C in the ordinance. The one that is in your packet originally was fairly, well, we thought straightforward. Here's the chart right here. And it says 31 dwelling units, and it goes into requirements with the school district. Have to be deed restricted or price capped. And the amendment specified that 20 needed to be rental. And then later on in the, it'd be page 15, condition number 9.
So Mark, you're working off of the wrong one that wasn't updated?
Well, this was handed to us today regarding what the,
And then Briston and I had conversations and it was updated.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that, you're correct, James. There has been some, staff and the applicant have gotten on the same page. There was sort of some 11th hour discussions happening before this meeting that, correct, James?
Yeah, but Tom's got it.
These are my comments, so can I
Yeah.
explain to you? I had some concern about Exhibit C as it's
Okay,
written
where
here.
exactly are we on?
And in the packet version of Exhibit C, which James has made a couple of changes to, and there's a handout on it. The packet version of Exhibit C starts at page 12 of the ordinance. Do you have that? Starts at page 12 of the ordinance, and there's a handout.
No, I don't think so. I haven't, this is my packet, and there's Exhibit C in it.
Right.
There was something on the table.
The
but-
handout on
Top
the table.
left of first page, Exhibit C, it says page
Oh, these
12, right?
guys.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what's in the packet, and then James handed out some amendments to this Exhibit C.
Oh, yeah, okay, right.
One of the handouts that was on your
Yeah, I got it.
desk when you came into the room tonight.
Right.
So, I had some issues about Exhibit C, and I will tell you what they are, and staff and applicant can respond. Number one, while mention was just made that on the first page in the little matrix there, type of units, deed-restricted, price-capped units, free market units. It doesn't say how many of the deed-restricted units are gonna be rental and how many are gonna be sale. And I strongly recommend that there be an identification of how many units are gonna be rental and how many are gonna be sale, because it's guaranteed to be an item of unnecessary debate at some point in the future if it's not pinned down here, and I've never seen an application where that wasn't identified in the approval. I made a recommendation for some other changes in the conditions in Exhibit C. There are two parts of condition number 9 that are obsolete and do not need to appear. One of them has been deleted as shown in the handout from James. That is the town, where it says at the bottom of page 14, the town shall deed the town's ownership interest back to the applicant, etc. That is unnecessary, as is the second sentence of paragraph 9 above it. The applicant shall grant 1/10 of 1% ownership interest in each rental unit, etc. Those provisions are obsolete. They were in the prior approval before the amendment of the Colorado anti-rent control statute, which has now been amended to allow for deed-restricted rental units when they're provided by voluntary agreement between the applicant and the local government, and that's what's referred to in connection with CRS 3812-301. So the second sentence, paragraph 9, should not be in there. Okay? The other issue I had concerned condition number 11. And the reason that I'm concerned about that is that there are two different types of covenants that are going to be part of this project. One is your typical declaration of covenants that comes with any a homeowners association formed in accordance with Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act. And second is the master deed restriction that establishes the covenants that are necessary to enforce the affordable housing restrictions. And there would be one type of deed restriction for rental units and another for ownership units. What appears in condition number 11 is improperly identified as something to appear in the master declaration of covenants. It should be a deed restriction issue. But more importantly, this is one among many issues to be addressed in the language of the deed restriction. It's not necessary for it to be in here. It is only one item of concern in connection with the deed restriction. This language is generally consistent with what we put in a deed restriction, but it doesn't make sense to put in your ordinance just one condition, one term of what's going to be in the master deed restriction for the ownership units. So those are pretty much my comments, and in the handout from staff, condition 11 is deleted. Now, it is typical to have in these approvals that both the covenants, the Kiowa covenants, and the master deed restriction are reviewed and approved by the town attorney prior to recording the subdivision plat. And that is the language that essentially should appear in condition, in lieu of what's in there now as condition number 11.
Okay. All that said,
Staff would suggest if we could kind of describe how we've addressed those items.
I think I just did.
Well, but your last comment related to there should be something in there about town attorney reviewing deed restrictions is actually in the final documents section, so it's already in there. So
Well, that's fine, then maybe 11 isn't necessary at all, but we should be reviewing the covenants as well.
What else?
So are we specifying the number of rental versus for sale? I thought one of the big attractions of this project was that it provided many rental units that would be affordable. That is a very important feature of this project to me.
So the way the condition reads on the handout that you have is that identification of the number of rental and sale units would have to happen as part of the final.
And I don't believe that's sufficient, because who decides then?
Well, the council.
You should be deciding right now.
That's my position.
This isn't final, is it?
Yeah,
No, well,
it is for the,
no, we
this
actually,
portion of the project.
we actually have language in here. We changed it between the last time we saw it and this time to tie the final plan approval to more integrated, so that you could make changes to, for example, the single-family portion if the second phase isn't
Part of
approved.
the final plan review.
What's wrong with having it here?
It should be here.
I see no reason not to, and I see many reasons for that it should be.
So. I kind of tend to agree with Bernie, but. What else?
You want to talk about the tennis courts or wait on that? What about the vesting? We should be able to reach a conclusion. I am perfectly satisfied with 5-year vesting.
I think this group made a decision on that last time. Is that true? Because I was the person saying I'm only okay with 3, because.
I don't think we made a
I don't think
decision.
we did
Didn't
make a
we?
decision, you and I.
Just provided feedback.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you
We
provided
had
feedback.
discussion.
Okay, well then we should talk about it again.
So on vested rights, I'm more comfortable with 3 years than 5 years because of the financial agreements that we have for the town being reimbursed for traffic mitigation, and the reality of the economy, and it's okay to come back and go over it again. I know that it's not a fun and great process, but it's motivation.
Actually, we're gonna do this first, yeah. Anybody else? Let's try to polish, it looks like people are fading here, but let's try to get to an answer on the vested rights. Where are you, Gary?
On what vested rights, I mean, to me, vested rights don't, I mean, if you start the project when you say you're gonna start the project, the vested rights don't matter, you keep moving through the project. I worry that it's gonna wait for 5 years before it starts. And so I'd love them to address, you know, I know you kinda talked about it last time, but truly, in the context of, as long as you're working on the project, the vested rights don't expire. The vested rights expire if you don't work on any of the project and don't start. We might not start, if we allow 5 years, it doesn't start for 5 years. And if it doesn't happen in 3, I think you should come back and at least talk to us about why it's not moving forward. So I don't mind him addressing that piece of it, because usually a 3-year vesting is to get things moving.
Yeah, Jen.
And can I bounce back as well? The town earlier this evening made financial commitments to help the south side traffic, which helps the development, looking at traffic queuing, going through, turning onto Highway 82. And that's generously going to help this possible application by moving traffic through. And so that's where a shorter vesting period is going to reflect more directly with Southside traffic problems, issues, which we just put a huge dent into this evening, earlier.
Let's wade through this vested rights thing, just to get one of these things ticked off.
I'm okay with 5.
Okay.
Originally, I was open to 5, but I understand the reason why we have a standard 3-year vesting right, and I support it.
Bernie?
If you would agree to some start date certain without us having to give the vesting, make it 3, can we come up, I'll ask Tom, is there a way to finesse this?
On the start date, I don't think you want to go there.
No, that's what vesting is about.
That's not fair to the applicant to do that. And you'd end up in
In
another.
other words, it's either 3-year or 5-year.
Well, you
Or
can
10
ban.
years, or 15.
Minimum of 3 by statute. You can
Okay.
go, you can exceed that at your discretion, at any number you choose.
I'll still stick with 5 then.
Did you have a, can I?
Just go ahead and say your thought
I'd like
first.
to hear it in case this informs what I'm gonna say.
Couple comments. Number one, we've been at this for over 10 years, okay? And while it's easy to sit around this room and say, start the project within 3 years, if the economic forces stay the way they are, we're gonna start this project spring of next year. We're going into a new presidential paradigm here, have no idea what's gonna happen in the banking industry, have no idea the ripple effects of what that could have to this project. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to take a survey. How many of the council members are gonna be here in 3 years, right? You're basically saying to the applicant, well, let's put 3 years on it, but why don't you come back and check in with us in 3 years if there's forces in this world that I cannot control, okay? There's economic forces in the banking industry, in this market, in the Roaring Fork Valley that we as an applicant cannot control. So what I'm hoping that this council does is understand that this is part of a master plan, it's part of the urban growth boundary. It's a great project for this community, it's a great project for the Roaring Fork Valley. It's solving affordable housing needs. Let's not handicap it at this meeting. Allow us to succeed.
Okay, I'll go ahead and throw my 2 cents in. I was here when you came in to extend your vested rights. It was about a 30-second meeting. You asked for an extension and we said yes. So basically, for those of us who are seasoned at this, we understand that if the economy tanks, and that's what happened to you, the economy tanked, and you came in as well as other approved, developers whose rights had run out, and we just extended them in 30 seconds. I think the point being, and Gary and I have sat through this, is that get it going. If you can't get it going, come in and ask. So, we may be split on this, but we need to hash this out as a council, so.
So Jackie, I appreciate that, but the point is, it goes back to my first question. You may be fair and reasonable. Your replacement may not be fair and reasonable.
Okay, well, you know what, let's
So-
let the council,
Yeah.
you had your opportunity to speak, and for us to get through, we need to have the rest of this conversation be from the council. Okay, Auden?
I support, I'm okay with 5. I understand your points on 3. I think that this is a project that council generally has been trying to push through over many years, and I think it's a generally good project so far, so I'll support 5.
I guess we need to vote on.
You need a hand vote, you don't need,
You
you
don't
do the
vote,
whole
just-
thing as
yeah.
one, but you can go hands on this issue.
Okay, who is wanting 3?
You win, maybe?
Okay,
And I can give you my reason, is that I want, back when we approved this in 2009, I wanted this project to be built. And it didn't get built, and now we're here that many years later, and it's a different project. So honestly, within 3 years, if the economy does tank, you might want a different project. The community might want it, but the way the current conditions are, to me, I don't understand why you want more vesting for a project do you want to build right away? That is something I'd love to understand more because,
Well, you want me to repeat what I just said?
I know, you're worried about.
Basically,
Financing.
there's forces that, Gary, you can't control and I can't control that impact this project. That's number one. Okay, we're going into, who knows what the new presidential administration is gonna do. Who knows what the repercussions to that is in the banking industry, right? When you look at the previous approval, on how long it took us to get the previous approval, the economy was ripe for this project. The project probably would have been built and occupied in the duration that it took to get the previous application approved. Okay, it took me almost 5.5 years to get the previous application approved through the town of Basalt. And while it's easy for everybody to sit here and just wave their arm on 3 versus 5 years, we're trying to create certainty with this application. And with certainty allows for success.
Bruce, did I have to stop you? We need to
Board needs to.
finish. We need to finish this. We already decided on that one, so we're not gonna argue it. Please don't incite
Well,
the
no,
applicant
I mean,
to.
I asked him to.
Well, yeah,
I know you did, and
I
I said,
did.
please don't. Let's
I-
continue.
Well, I'm just
Let's
responding
continue.
Time
to a
out.
question.
That's information that is useful to hear.
And we heard it twice now. Do you wanna hear it again?
I
About
think
the
you're being
economy
rude.
can
You're being
tank?
rude.
I'm not being rude. I'm saying, if we are going to do this the way we always do it,
No, let's think about it.
What you just had a
okay, do
straw
you want to vote again
We
on
had a
this?
straw vote. Yeah, because Gary's taking in more information.
Do you
Well,
wanna
the thing
vote
is, what
again?
I'm trying to understand, because we deal with vesting rights all the time in open space land, and we give long vestings to properties that we want to develop very slowly or not at all. So they have 20 or 30 years to make a decision. They don't feel like they have to do it now. This project is something that supposedly we want. So that is the reason why I was pushing for more for 3. In the end, it is not a deal breaker in my world to be 3 or 5. I just, to me, I don't want to sit on this property for another 5 years before something happens. And I know your financials are tight, and I know when we get into discussion of the other things, it's gonna make it tighter, but the reality is we want a project that can actually be completed.
Gary, if I may, 3 years goes by very quick in the construction and development world. Very quick.
Right.
So, just, design, implementation, permitting, all kinds of things. I'm just looking for clarity and certainty, and I asked the board if they could please grant us 5 years.
Do you want to have this decision again, Gary?
Well, I mean, to me, it's not a make or break thing, so I think we can continue on in the end and see, because I'm
It's your
not.
call, because you're the one that seems to be not decided.
You know, one comment is that,
Yes, Auden?
if you get only 3 tonight, council will be here in 3 years. Before this council leaves, come in and get 3 more years of vesting. If that's, sounds like that would be, you guys would support that.
So what I'm hearing you say is this project physically doesn't start spring of next year. I come in spring of next year and ask for 3 more years of vesting?
I'm just saying, if this council supports that, that would be a way to avoid being at the mercy of a future council.
Yeah, look,
Can't eliminate the.
I could share with you, we are driven to perform, okay? Like I said, we have in excess of $2 million invested in this process already. And I'm just trying to basically understand the realities of the world. And I'm looking for flexibility to ensure success. It's easy to say, this council will be here and we'll extend it, and I want to set up a project that we've been working on for 10 years to succeed, and to succeed without being handicapped.
Jen?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to support your statement of the way that our meetings work and that this is unusual and having the back and forth conversation is not how business is usually conducted. And I would like to return to our normal mode of business. Otherwise, moving into the future, this may muddle all future applications and the way that our meetings are run.
Yeah,
So
and-
I support you in that, and thanks.
Just saying, one more point is that staff came to the same conclusion that we came to. And so you're actually going against a staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry if I sounded rude to Auden, but the reality is there is an opportunity for an applicant to speak and the staff speaks. There's an opportunity for a public hearing, and those are over. And it is now time for council deliberation. And in order for us to deliberate, we need to have the floor. So I'm sorry if that was rude to Auden, but that's how normal meetings are run. So did we want to go back to the South Park programming? And we didn't really land on a final answer on that, did we, on 3 courts or 4 courts or?
I
Three.
just, can I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
Did we decide on the amount of rental units? We did not so we did not finish our business. And I would like to finish our business and get it written in this agreement, the amount of rental units.
Okay, that's, well, do you want to address that? Because my understanding is that was going to come back.
There isn't any.
You can have it come back, or I think the applicant originally proposed.
Yes, we can.
20 rental units in the multifamily.
I think we need to see this in writing and just come back.
Well, wait a minute, I don't think you come back, Jackie, you need to just decide.
Well, do we,
Tom, this is not your place.
On this document, there's no coming back, it's.
but we
this
could,
is it.
We
That's
can-
all I'm saying.
We can
excuse me,
table
could we
it,
not
yes.
continue this
Yes, we can.
reading to a later
I thought you
date?
were gonna wanna bring it to a conclusion tonight.
I don't think that's possible.
Okay, on,
So, didn't you say, Susan, that in the process, it was established that we'd come back to this question later?
Well, that's what our proposal was, is that we would come back at final and have the discussion and memorialize it at the time.
Because Bernie, I understand your point, I think it's important and I agree with it, but it seems to me the applicant's more at risk than we are here. If there's a desire for more rental units later on in the process, you're at risk by not making this established now, so I don't see why it's a problem to delay it.
Katie.
Well, I mean, my expectation for this meeting is that there are many more questions that we need to ponder outside of this meeting, including this discussion right here of rental versus sale. So my expectation is that we continue this meeting until January 26th, and this being one of the discussion items that comes back. And I understand your proposal versus Tom's proposal and how yours is contingent on future final. But I think what I'm interpreting from the council right now is that we don't want to delay that discussion that long, but we don't want to decide it tonight because we're not armed with enough information.
You know, it wouldn't hurt for you guys just to weigh in on that issue, because I'm hearing really strongly, you know, a couple of the members, but that might, Jackie, be a good one for a hand one too. Do you want to have this document resolve it or not, and just have that be a hand vote too?
Are you asking, have what document?
I'm asking if you would like to ask the group itself, do they want to have it memorialized in this approval document, or they want to wait till final?
Okay. Would you like to see this, the number of rental versus,
We could, I would like to see it established in writing in this document, and because I feel the rental units are the most attractive part of the proposal, that we could establish a minimum which could be increased at
Right.
a later date.
so yes. Do you need to see this in writing before we move on?
Not right now, I could do it later.
Okay, Katie was a
It
yes.
needs to be in this document, yes.
I'm a yes.
Not tonight.
It doesn't matter to me.
I could see it later.
Okay. Jen?
To be clear, that what we're talking about is handing this back to staff, asking them to bring it back to us in January with a proposed amount of rental units. I am supportive of that, and yes.
Can I just?
Yeah, Bernie.
I would like to see Tom's issues and concerns addressed in the final document that comes back to us. How, I know you guys have worked something out. You all get together, so we see some clean documents.
I agree. There was quite a bit of stuff that Tom had changed.
The other thing I would like to see is, under the impacts on the town and other services, I did just mini research on this today, and I would like to actually see the line item, if you will, of the impacts of police, parks, streets. I know you said schools are irrelevant and water, but it seems like when you're proposing a small town, the schools would have something to say about it. So,
School did weigh in.
that's what it says. What,
School weighed in like it did on Aceland.
yeah, exactly. Okay, is there anything else that we need to see?
But we could decide the number of, the type of park and uses later. Do we need
Okay.
to do that tonight, or?
I mean, if we're gonna table this, yes.
I would like to discuss the park this evening to provide the applicant and staff feedback for them to come back with.
Yeah, because we talked about it for a long time and the public
Yes.
weighed in. So do you want to go first?
No, thanks. I'm still gathering that one.
Okay, I'm of the mind to ask that the park be as it was in 2009.
I have applicant questions. Kristen, with your configuration of basketball court attached to the two tennis, is that just gonna be divided by a chain link fence? What's dividing tennis from basketball?
Probably a low fence.
A low fence? Okay. And I don't know if this is pretty detailed, and I don't know if this is a question for you or Basalt Park and Rec, but there's a lot of popularity right now in pickleball courts. And if these tennis courts can allow for both tennis and pickleball to accommodate multiple recreational opportunities, is that, or maybe
Yeah, so
Susan, I'm asking you, is that
Pickleball's typically played on tennis courts,
right?
so they just are marked differently, the lines. Diana can explain it better, but those are dual uses.
So we're okay doing that, because there's a lot of controversy about tennis courts being converted and operated as pickleball courts. But I just want to state that there's a large group of people that are interested in pickleball courts in addition to tennis courts.
They actually don't have to be converted. There's just different lines.
Yeah, it's just the lines.
Yeah, it's just the lines.
Yes, totally understand that. So,
I would just say that that could be a final plan, but I know tennis purists don't like.
Don't want 'em.
Yeah.
yes,
So
that's very true.
I think you should decide on how many tennis courts you want, and then whether they're painted. That actually could be, you probably don't even wanna lock it in your approval, because over time it can change.
Okay. I'm not saying it needs to be in the approval. I just say that from my perspective, I think it would be, because we're talking about in Bristol's plan, if opening up this area to allow additional recreational opportunities outside of basketball and tennis. And I say I support that, and I would like an opportunity to support pickleball. And I am fine with the reconfiguration of 2 tennis courts and 1 basketball court, because I think that this park could offer additional opportunities outside of that if you reduce the paved space.
Bernie?
I'm going to follow the recommendations of the Parks, Open Space, and Trail Committee and the P&Z, 2 of our, important recommending committees that report to the council, which recommend that South Park be developed as an active park, basically on the approvals granted in 2009, and that there's sufficient passive park in the south side at all, already. So I would approve of the 3 tennis courts and the 2 basketball courts.
Auden.
Okay, I support the proposal of 2 tennis courts and the 1 basketball court. Diana, I heard you and I understand your interest in more courts. I just think it's hard to get that much in there. I also think, you know, I was surprised that the indoor tennis center was withdrawn because it wasn't clear to me that council didn't support it. It was, as far as I could tell, a conversation with people weighing the pros and cons, unless I missed a meeting, no? And then I recognize, yeah, their financial cost to building out that many basketball and tennis courts, and that is a potential threat to the project. So I'm okay with the 2 courts and the 1 basketball court.
So I guess we're gonna have a hand raise. Who wants 2 courts and a basketball court?
I was gonna propose, well, I'm in the middle. I don't know if you need 2 basketball courts. I was thinking, you know, 3 tennis courts, 1 basketball court. And I just look at it going, an active park needs, you know, trying to think outside the box. I mean, all the park plans that I've been dealing with, you're trying to incorporate things that people do now. And yeah, we have a skate park downtown, but is that enough? Look how many people we're putting in. You know, people love those skate parks for scooters and you name it. And so, you know, I'm not necessarily, I mean, the 2 basketball courts seems a lot considering the way they were configuring that 1 basketball court, but I don't necessarily, I want it to be an active park, but I just don't, I don't know, in 2009, it's like, I would be happy with 3 tennis courts and 1 basketball court and figuring out some other park items and maybe not having it all done right away, but, so I was kinda in between.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of liking what Gary is saying, and that I do think we should have the 3 tennis courts, because you're putting, what, 40 more units than the original approval. There's more people coming in here. We're not increasing the total size of the park allotment for these people. We've already downsized the park allotment from what code is, as I understand it, in the original approval, because this is a compact, dense community, which I support, that concept that you brought to us. I could certainly, I would like to see 3 tennis courts and 1 basketball court be built and leave another use till later would be, I would end up where Gary is.
Jen?
May I propose, no less than 4 courts and any sort of combination of, I don't have an attachment if they're tennis courts or basketball courts. I just feel that with the number of people, the increase, what was approved in 2009 and now an increase of 40 more units on the, ish, don't quote me on the number, that are being built on here, that there needs to be a maintenance of what was originally approved and also reflect planning and zoning and.
How does that strike you, Gary? Just 4 courts of some kind?
I mean, that's, I mean, I look at it going, you know, kind of, the basketball court also serves as a cool hard surface area for people to scooter around and stuff. Tennis courts, you don't really scooter around and stuff like that on. So, you know, I'm looking at what people actually use out in the area, and, you know, it's like when they have, like, if you go to Snowmass Rec Center, you know, you see other uses using the basketball court, and you do not, the tennis courts are tennis courts, so they're gonna be
So your idea was 3 and 1?
3 and 1 in the configuration that these guys came up with that pony court, that, like, it's basically 1.5 because you have a pee-wee court too.
So what is it you're suggesting, just in word?
I said 3 tennis courts, and the basketball court is 1 laid out like they laid it out with the pee-wee.
Okay,
So it takes away some of the hardscape on it, but it actually provides a lot of basketball in one spot.
Okay.
But I do believe in the 3 tennis courts that we originally approved in 2009.
Are you okay with that? Yes. Are you okay with that?
Not really. I just soon see 2 and 1, because once you put something in, it's, you know, it's there. And if we put 2 in and 1 basketball court, and we feel the need for another tennis court or something, then we've got the opportunity to do it.
Okay. What about you? Are you good with Gary's recommendation?
Sure. It's fine.
Okay, Bernie?
Yes.
Auden? Okay, we're done with that one. Geez, this is like the size of the pipe taken over the edge. Okay. So is there a motion to continue this to a date?
January 26th.
24th. January 24th?
10/24, right?
And is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Mayor, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Not about that issue, but I just want to make a compliment to James. Previously, the town hired consultants to do the service and economic impact models, and James did that in-house.
Right.
And we had paid previously about $31,000 or advanced that, and we did it at no extra cost, so I
Gotta
want
love
to
that.
compliment James on an
Thanks, James.
excellent job.
But could I ask, there was some comments made about additional discussion items. I was wondering if council could provide just a quick direction on what some.
Mine was the
so we could
cost-benefit analysis.
Try to address them for the next meeting.
I just want to see it, see how it was broken down and
And the rental unit thing.
the
to
rental
clarify.
units.
So, you know,
And we'd like to see a complete, clean document.
Anything else? If we have other things that we didn't remember to address, please call James, I guess. Okay, great.
Thank you.
The next item is Resolution 48, budget resolution summarizing expenditures and revenues for each fund and adopting the 2017 budget for the town of Basalt. It's got to be Judy.
So, this is back to Jennifer's question, so. Can you use the mic, please? Sorry. So this goes back to, the resolution just breaks it out by, the difference is that it goes out, and so the important thing to remember is we did get the general fund where we are not using any reserves, and that's a big change for us in the pattern over the last 3 years. And the very last thing that I would like to, say, and certainly I guess we'll extend this tomorrow to them, but thank you to all of the department heads. This has been, not an easy process this time, and so I'd just like to say thank you to all of the department heads for hanging in there, and I know we've had many revisions, but I think we have a good working document.
And I think you deserve primary credit and thanks for orchestrating a really challenging budget this coming year, so I want to thank you too, and all the department heads.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Judy.
Yay. This is a,
Just a reso, so there's no.
I'm ready to make a resolution.
Okay, do it.
If you're ready for one.
yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank all the staff. That was quite a bit of work, and everybody's had to pull their belt tight. And we wish we had more funds to do more things with, but I think we are headed in the right financial direction of fiscal responsibility and soundness of our budget, matching our promises with our incomes. And I think that was a huge thing that we accomplished this year for the first time in many years. Anyhow, Mayor, I move that the Town Council approve Resolution Number 48, Series of 216.
Okay, Bernie and Katie, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks Bernie and Katie too for your work on that budget.
Resolution 49 is a resolution of the town authorizing the town manager to extend the time for outdoor live music for restaurants and bars on Midland Avenue to 1 a.m. on New Year's Eve. James,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The original request that I received was to stay open to 12:45. So if the council is all receptive to extending the hours to about that, I would say 12:45 would be sufficient in terms of the lateness of the hour. So if you make a
So it's
motion.
not morning, it's still night, or something like that?
I don't know, I'm not usually up that time of day, but anyway, I just would say if there's a motion.
I just have a question about this. Is there any reason why it's only on Midland Avenue?
We tried to use the same format that we approved of for changes in the hours of outdoor music for the summertime, which we used the Midland Avenue corridor for that.
And there's nobody in other basalts that would, like
And outdoor
Willits?
music in January?
Yeah, there's not too many other locations for
Oh.
that. You know, Heather's is proposing to put a tent up out on their patio, so that's a good space for it to work.
Okay.
There aren't too many out there that are good
Okey-doke.
spaces for it to work.
But
Right.
if you're worried about it, you could easily take out Midland Avenue.
Okay.
Well, no one's come in and asked.
Is
so-
there motion? Or did something?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve resolution number 49, series of 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Going.
Could we
All in favor?
confirm, excuse me, the
All-
time?
all- what?
Can you confirm the time?
12:45?
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yep.
Thank you.
Well, that was easy.
Thank you.
Let's see.
It's gonna be fun. Take your reservations.
Okay, all right. Okay, public hearing and first reading of ordinance 33, an ordinance of the town, chapter 16, zoning of the municipal code, amending article 21, rivers, wetlands, and environmentally sensitive areas to address floodplain regs in Reach 2 of the Roaring Fork River.
So Reach 2 is the section of the river between the upper bypass bridge and the lower bypass bridge. And the town code has floodplain regulations in two sections. So we have just the normal floodplain regulations that look pretty much like everyone else's floodplain regulations. And that's in order to be eligible to receive flood insurance, and they're also regulated by the Colorado Water Conservation Board. We also have another section of the code that we actually adopted as early as 1999, and this is kind of the environmentally sensitive areas that also include floodplain. So when the town was preparing new floodplain mapping back in the early 2000s, we created special floodplain regulations for Reach 2. And that was because most of the Reach 2 area that was in a floodplain was actually in a floodway. So the area on the south side was actually in a designated floodway until November 25th of this year. And it was a pretty extensive effort to remove that south side floodway designation. Picken County helped us, Eagle County helped us, the Colorado Department of Transportation helped us, and it's been going on for a number of years. Really, the outcome of this, I mean, we looked at creating a FEMA compliant levee in the south side, and it was just not environmentally correct, and the Teresa's were objecting to it. What we ended up doing was modeling the south side flood plain differently. It has now 1,000 CFS of water instead of the floodway designation, and we're doing that because Colorado Department of Transportation is monitoring the debris that's in the upper bypass bridge, and they agree if it's at a certain level that they go clean it out. So the floodplain mapping actually became effective on November 25th, so this is kind of the companion piece that we've been telling the Southside businesses that we would amend the floodplain in the south side. So we had a meeting that involved the planners, James and I, but it also included the floodplain experts. So we had Robert Crable from Matrix Design Groups. He is our river hydrologist that did the work on the main river out here in the Pan Fork. We had David Kotz from SGM. He's a certified floodplain manager. He's working on behalf of the town. We had Yancey Nickel from Sobris Engineering, who, sorry, Tom and I are sharing, we're not doing very well here, but we had Yancey Nickel from Sobris Engineering, and he's actually representing the Basalt Business Center property owners in the south side. And we had John Sikora from AECom, and he was the one who did the floodplain mapping. So this exhibit 2 that's in here is really a result of that discussion. So it changes the regulations for that Reach 2 ESA, and what it does is it creates a separate Southside Reach 2 with less cumbersome procedures and requirements that you have to submit. And basically it kind of eliminates this referral process. It eliminates the requirement that the hydrologist be involved. It's a floodplain manager that looks at it. And I think the important thing that everybody's recognizing is we want to move ahead with this. It's still going to require a property owner to run a HEC-RAS model before they permit development. And I think the idea here is we're going to monitor this and look how it is implemented. And in the future, we may be able to come back and amend this and make it even kind of less cumbersome. But everyone felt comfortable now moving ahead with this approach. P&Z looked at it. They requested some additional information, which we included under the board recommendation in your packet. This is a public hearing, and so what we're recommending here is that we have the public hearing and we approve it on first reading and set the second reading and public hearing for January 10th.
Okay, then we will. So this is a public hearing. We'll open the public hearing at 8:40. Is there anyone? Oh, we have a person.
Yes, we do.
Please come up to a microphone.
Standing or sitting?
You can, I think it's easier to sit, quite honestly, because there isn't a microphone at the podium.
Sure. A number of you know me, a lot of you don't. I'm Bob Myers.
Hi, Bob.
I own Myers and Company, or used to own it, but I still own the property there. We developed that property in 1985 under the town of Basalt's floodplain regulations. Our property was mapped into the flood area by FEMA at that point in time. And when they built the highway bridge, CDOT screwed up the whole floodplain. FEMA freaked out and remapped it and put the entire south side, raised the flood elevations tremendously. We had a bill that came in about 1993, and I'm a little off in the dates, but we've been paying $3,000 a year for flood insurance. We got a bill for $66,000. We've been struggling we didn't pay that, nor did we have to. The town of Basalt got a mea culpa from the state of Colorado on what they had done with the bridge. Susan explained a very complicated solution. I'm not entirely sure I understand it. I know that all the engineers agree that this is a step in the right direction. Louis Meyer told us while we were working through this thing that because we were no longer in the flood way, the FEMA regulations would be governing what was going on the south side. Auden earlier said we need to develop the Basalt Business Center and the rest of south side, build it out before we do other things. The reason nothing's happened there in the last 15 or 20 years are some of the town's regulations that Susan is suggesting that you guys modify. It's a step in the right direction from the point of view of virtually all of the people in the Basalt Business Center. It's not what we hope would be the end game, where we could just follow the FEMA rules and build above the flood elevations. So I strongly recommend that it be unanimously passed and followed up on with engineering and building permits, because as things develop and as studies are presented, I think one of the things that you were saying is that they're gonna revisit this a little bit to hopefully make it simpler and less cumbersome. Yancey Nickel told me to get a building permit in the south side with the town rules that were in place could be a $20,000 to $30,000 exercise in those areas that are affected by the zero rise regulation and some of the other things. And now it's only gonna be $2,000 or $3,000 extra. We shall see. But it's a step in the right direction, so.
Bob, thank you for
Please.
coming down and sitting through all night to get to this.
It's a pretty important thing for
Right.
our property and all the other business owners.
Well, I know a couple of us had to have been on this council for that zero rise reg, because I remember it was that was complex as well. So, thank you.
So that's all I had to say.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh, right, thank you, wake me up. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, if not, I'll close the public hearing at 8:45. And, yeah,
I move that the town council approve ordinance number 33 on first reading and continue and set the public hearing and second reading for January 10th.
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Additional items for consideration. Town council consideration of approval of agreement and mutual release in Kane and Breed versus Kent, Eagle County District Court, case number 2015 CV 30179, Tom Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. You have in front of you in your packet a settlement agreement of mutual release and the litigation that Jackie just referred to. This case involves, 100 years ago was called Post Office Alley, what was subsequently called Remsbecker Alley, and what is now called Kent Alley, between Homestead Drive and Midland Avenue. The controversy has been going on at least since the 1980s, largely between the owners of Two Rivers Cafe and the owner of the residential property that's now owned by Heather Kent, formerly owned by Joan Remsbecker and her family. The parties have never been able to work out a resolution, and the owners of Two Rivers filed a lawsuit last year to get a resolution. Their claim is for vehicular access through the alley to the back of their building, and those claims were opposed. The town's interest is public non-vehicular access and emergency access for emergency vehicles. The town has an old easement of 5 feet. The alley is 10 to 12 feet wide. The portion of the alley usable by the public is, of course, undefined. We have had ongoing issues of liability, maintenance, and law enforcement issues that Greg could tell you about ad nauseum. The heart of it is that without a three-party agreement, there's no agreement. And that means getting the private property owners to reach an agreement so that we could define public rights and public law enforcement responsibilities. Without a resolution of the issues between them, we've been in no man's land on that, and it's been really difficult to determine with any certainty what the town's rights and obligations are. So last week, or at the end of November, in the midst of depositions and anticipation of a trial scheduled for 1 week next week, we were able to call a timeout and talk about settlement. And the three parties sat around the table, and in 24 hours we put together the agreement that's in front of you. I am recommending it for approval because, number one, it resolves issues of public access, public responsibility, maintenance, and law enforcement that have been a gray area for a substantial period of time. It also resolves the issues between the private parties, which is, as ancillary benefit to the town in terms of knowing how to enforce both public and private rights in connection with that alley. The agreement does require an additional $7,500 payment to Heather Kent. While that's a cost to the town, the costs that you would have incurred with me getting ready for trial since 30 November and up to the present, and with a 1-week trial next week, you're looking at a substantially greater expense than the $7,500, in addition to the potential for an adverse ruling, and then, of course, potential for appeals if someone's unsatisfied. So it is my view that this is a good practical solution to a long-standing problem, and it's a benefit for the town, and it's also a benefit to private parties involved who are signatories to this agreement. I recommend that you vote to approve it.
Thanks, Tom. I think, at least speaking for myself, I know that there's a few of us who weren't sure we should have been in this deal, but I think given that the outcome is done, and it didn't cost us $1 million in court, I'm glad it's over, and I don't know what anybody else thinks, but Bernie?
Mayor, I move the town council approve the agreement and mutual release in Kane and Breed versus Kent, case number 2015 CV 30179.
Second.
Okay, Bernie and Auden, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, the next item is executive session. It's a conference with our attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 246402-4B, specifically the Mike Scanlon Notice of Claim versus the Town of Basalt. Is there a motion?
Can I ask Tom, just out of the, can you please give us verbal advice that you advise us to discuss
Pardon me?
this? Can you advise us that this should be discussed verbally here?
This purpose of this executive session is exclusively for privileged attorney-client communications relative to the notice of claim filed by Mike Scanlon's attorneys with the town, dated December 1 of this year. And I want to advise the town about the legal issues that are at stake in this connection with this claim.
Is this a record or no record?
This is, if you vote to go into executive session, I will direct Pam to, that it's not necessary to record this executive session because it's exclusively for attorney-client communication.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming and staying so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you vote?
Mayor, I move that the town council enter executive session for the purpose of receiving.
Wait a minute, did Bernie, did you already make the motion? Okay.
For legal advice on specific legal questions in accordance with CRS 246402-4B, the specific matter to be discussed being Mike Scanlon Notice of Claim versus Town of Basalt.
Second.
Okay, Jen and Bernie, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I respectfully recuse myself from this executive session. Thank you.
Because you're hungry, right? Bye, Chris. Chris, congratulations again. Chris is gonna have another baby. Woohoo!
You can now turn off the tape. No, there's no action to be taken after the executive session.
Yes. Don't let me forget. Because I tend to leave without you, even when I say yes.
Every now and again I have this.
I tend to bolt out the door for my Irish whiskey.